2021 meeting of the Gary Common Council. Of course, we want to acknowledge and wish everyone, residents and city and citizens of Gary, a very happy and knowledgeable Black History Month. Some of us are in our regalia, and others of us will be in it later this month. We certainly want to acknowledge the history and heritage and contribution of African Americans to these United States of America. As is our custom, we will begin with a word of prayer. I'm honored that Pastor Hollis D. Manna, the Gary native, graduate of Wirt High School, and the pastor of the Morning Star Missionary Baptist Church, also a local teacher at Theo Bowman Academy, will be giving our opening prayer. Pastor Manna.
Good evening, everyone. Let us pray. God, we thank you for this another day. We're grateful that we are able to call upon your name. You told us to pray in the Spirit in all occasions. And so we lift up your name today. We lift up every soul that's here. We lift up every agenda item that will be mentioned. We ask your blessings upon this meeting. We ask your blessings, oh God, upon every branch of government, that you would bless our mayor, the city council members, even the judicial branch of our government. We ask for clarity of thought and clarity of speech. Most of all, God, we ask you would lead and guide and direct our paths. Give us, God, the right thing to say and do, that we might work towards the good of the citizens of this community. We thank you, Father God, that in all things you promised us that we will be more than conquerors. We count this meeting blessed. We invoke your presence here. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
And thank you so much, Pastor Manna, who also lives in our city, I believe in the 3rd district. So we're so honored that you would join us. 4th district, we stand corrected. I don't want to get in trouble with Councilwoman Atkins. But we thank you so much for joining us tonight and offering an excellent prayer.
Well, one of his staunchest members who was, I don't know how old she was, who just passed,
102.
lived down the street from me. So, whatever.
There's a 3rd district connection after all.
Yes, there is. Okay.
Thank you so much. At this time, we'll have our Pledge of Allegiance. I'll ask Councilman Brewer to lead us in that.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America,
and to the
and
republic
for
which
which
is
it stands,
one nation,
one nation,
under God,
under
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilman Brewer. Roll call, clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins. Here. Councilman Brewer.
Here.
Councilwoman Brown. Councilwoman Brown.
You're muted, Councilwoman.
Present.
Councilman Brown.
Here.
I'm here, present.
Councilwoman Caldwell.
Here.
Councilman Lay.
Present.
Councilman Weatherspoon.
Here.
Councilman Williams.
Here.
And President Godwin.
Present.
Mr. President, there are 9 present, 0 absent.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. With 9 members present, we have a quorum to conduct the business of the Gary Common Council. Council members, each of you have received the minutes of our January 19th, 2021 meeting. Is there a motion to approve said minutes?
So move, Mr. President.
It's been moved by Councilman Brewer
Second.
and seconded by Councilman Brown and Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell. Any questions or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins.
Yes.
Councilman Brewer.
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown.
Yes.
Councilman Brown.
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell.
Yes.
Councilman Lay.
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon.
Yes.
Councilman Williams.
Yes.
And President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 9-0.
With 9 votes in the affirmative, the minutes of our January 19th, 2021 meeting are approved. This time, we don't have any assignment of council pending ordinances and resolutions on our agenda, but I will entertain a motion to add the stated resolution. Do you have a copy of the resolution, Madam Clerk?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Do you want to, I will entertain a motion to add I don't have the resolution number, CPR.
2021-02.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So move, Mr. President.
It's been moved by Councilman Brewer and seconded, I believe, by Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell to add CPR 2021-02 to our agenda. Any questions or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon, Councilman Weatherspoon, Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
With a vote of 8-0, CPR 2021, I don't think that's correct. I guess it's, yeah. It's in the affirmative. CPR 2021-02 added to our agenda. At this time, we'll have the assignment of council pending ordinances and resolutions on first reading.
CPR 2021-02, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Gary, Indiana, designating Isaac Powell as an honorary member of the Gary Common Council, sponsored by Councilman Corey Slay, Councilman at large.
Second.
President, that is earlier, I'm not just the sole sponsor.
Right.
As I understood, entire council should be there as well as the mayor. Attorney Poe, did you send through the change?
Yes, Mr. President, that the amended version of that, or I shouldn't say the amended version, an updated version of that was sent a couple of hours ago. That includes the entire Gary Common Council as well as the mayor.
Okay, so Madam Clerk, can you restate the sponsors
Sponsored by the Gary Common Council
and the mayor?
and Mayor Jerome Prince, City of Gary.
Thank you. Parks, Recreation, and Culture.
Mr. President, resolutions.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Brown?
before we move on, we have some donations that have been given to the shelter that I need to make a motion for the council to accept.
I think we first need to have Councilwoman Atkins to accept CPR 2021-02 into her committee,
Oh, okay,
and then we'll come back.
okay.
All right, Councilwoman Atkins?
On the committee, I'm drawing a blank.
Yourself and Councilman Williams
And Barnes Caldwell.
Brown.
Who is it? Williams and who?
Mike Brown.
Mike Brown.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. President, the Park Recreation is our committee has before it CPR 2021-02 on first reading. Councilman Brown,
Yeah.
Yes.
that was Councilman Brown, Mike Brown.
Yes. Yes.
Councilman Williams.
Yes.
Mr. President, the Parks, Recreation, and Arts Committee accepts, we'll report out CPR 2021-02.
Thank you, Councilwoman Atkins. And then you said your part about the final report out.
You ready? Mr. President, the Parks, Recreations, and Arts Committee report out CPR 2021-02.
Thank you, Councilwoman Atkins. Councilwoman Brown.
Mr. President, the Rainbow Ark Shelter has received some donations, and I need to make a motion for the council to accept the donations. We have received from the Indiana Toll Road Concession Company, Elkhart, Indiana, $350 worth of miscellaneous non-perishable food items for each apartment unit once the shelter reopens. That's on January 19th. And then on January 27th, Redefine Fitness, Eric Smoot owner, Wilmette, Illinois, 20 queen size blankets, 54 towels, 72 washcloths for each apartment unit once the shelter reopens. And I can't pronounce this name, but from Israel Ministry, Gary, Indiana, 30 full-size sheet sets and 40 standard pillows. That's on January 29th. So these donations are all for the Rainbow Ark Shelter.
So as you've moved, and is there a second?
Second.
So moved and seconded by Councilman Barnes Caldwell. Any questions or discussion? Hearing and seeing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, vote is 9-0.
With 9 votes in the affirmative, the stated items are received. I know that there was mention of the CARES Act dollars being submitted to the council at today's meeting. You all still intend to do that?
I'm sorry, Councilman. I was trying to unmute myself.
That's okay.
The money comes to the council in the form of an appropriation ordinance.
Okay.
And I wanted to advise you that we are currently discussing the use of those dollars with the FOP. So as soon as we actually come to a conclusion, then we'll be bringing something to the council.
Very good. Thank you. That's very good. All right. So at this time, we will have our special and select. Any council members for special and select?
Council, Mr. President.
Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell.
I have 2 announcements. The first one is the 5th District will have their first community meeting February the 24th at 5:30 via Zoom. Our special guest will be Senator Milton, Representative Hatchard, Smith, and Harris. We'll send out the information because I'm missing some numbers right now, but you'll receive robocalls and also the flyer with Zoom information on it, and it'll have a schedule up until, I believe, May. So look forward to that. And also, I would like to give a special thanks to General Services for the work that they've done the last couple of days, but a special thank you to our fire and safety. Our fire department was out cleaning streets, getting people unstuck. I was one of those people. I am so grateful for it. The citizens in the 5th District, especially in this area, they gave me lots of calls thanking them for their service. I believe it was the mechanics and the training division that was out there doing most of the work. And I saw Carl Oren. He was busy doing all that stuff that general service couldn't get over here and do at the moment. So again, thank our fire department and general services for a job done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other members for special and select?
President,
Councilman Williams?
thank you. I would like to make an announcement for our first and, our first 6th District Community Forum, which would be for the month of February. February 18th, 2021 at 6 p.m. You can make a phone call to Legislative Aide Sherry Smith. Phone number is 777-5589. That will be at 6 o'clock p.m., February 18th by Zoom. She will give you the details. And also, I would like to thank the services of General Services. Thank you for coming out and doing the best job you can do to help us clear our streets. The residents that called me from the 6th District, I'm quite sure they came and took care of your concerns. And if you have any more concerns, please feel free to give me a call. I'm in conversation with General Services and others to see about improving that issue.
Thank you, Councilman Williams. Any other members for special and select?
Mr. President.
Councilwoman Atkins?
Thank you. I have a couple of announcements. First, I wanted to make the citizens aware of the Indiana Plan more recent class. They are accepting a class. As you remember, last year we talked about the Indiana Plan, which is a trade program available for residents within Northwest Indiana. There's an opportunity for them to participate, and I believe it's an 8-week apprenticeship program upon completion of this training curriculum. Those of you that are interested, you should submit an application to the program. I believe the deadline might be February the 28th. The appropriate contact for that, the executive director for Northern Indiana, his name is Roman Bronson. You can reach out to him by contacting the Urban League of Northwest Indiana at 219-887-9621, and they will direct you to that. I also wanted to let the residents know, again, we wanted to make sure that we focused on giving them information. If you do have a business and you are a DBE certified business, as we know, the Double Track project is happening in the Miller area under the Northern Indiana Commuter Transportation District. That particular project has a requirement to have at least 17% of DBE subcontractors. So for when we get that feedback as to why we don't have, certain contractors working that looks like us, for a lack of a better phrase, across the city, this is an opportunity for DBE, specifically contractors, to apply for these opportunities. The prime contractor is Larson Danielson. We did receive information correspondence recently from Mr. Eric Reeves, who stated that he was the dedicated direct contact, I believe, for Gary for this particular project. So I would recommend the public, if you do have a DBE certification, you are interested in bidding on this, to reach out to Eric. He should be able to give you more insight as to how you can contact the prime. His number is 219-881-1314. The deadline for bids for this project has to be submitted by March the 25th by 9 p.m. And again, all the plan documents is online, but Eric could direct you. I am going to utilize my skill set to kind of help the community as well. If you are interested or need help becoming DBE certified or MBE certified, I'm actually holding a workshop for free. That workshop would take place on March the 11th. It will be via Zoom at 5:30. And in this workshop, I will go through the process and how you can get certified, the potential requirements, and also I will walk you through that process upon completion of the workshop as well for both of those. Just FYI, the director over the DBE program through NDOT is a Gary native. His name is Derek Casson. And so Derek is waiting for the Gary natives who are qualified to submit and get these certifications so that you are eligible to bid on these projects. So please reach out to the Gary Common Council office to get the link again, my workshop teaching you that process will be March the 11th. I do want to echo the sentiments of Councilman Williams as well as Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell to the Gary Fire Department as well as to General Services. I received a number of calls from the seniors in my 4th District area who were stuck. So I thank you. I definitely want to thank you all for answering the call of the 4th and getting those seniors taken care of, as well as myself, because I was stuck as well. Lastly, the 4th District first community meeting will take place on March the 4th, which is a Thursday at 6 p.m. That will be via Zoom. And I will announce these at our next public meeting as well. And we will make sure that this information is posted on the Gary Common Council Facebook page. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilwoman Atkins. And I think I'm going to sign up for your course myself. Looking forward to it.
Oh, come on.
All right. Any other members for special and select?
Mr.
Mr.
President,
President.
Councilman
Good evening,
Brown,
everyone.
Councilman Brewer, and then Councilman Weatherspoon.
It was me, Mr.
Oh, I'm
President.
sorry, Councilman Lay, in that order. Councilman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, everyone, and happy Great History, Black History Month. Just want to say, based on what the other council people said about great general service, the fire department, as well as our first responders for the response for this past weekend's snow. And certainly want to thank our fire chief for calling around, asking some people if they needed assistance, and having the ability to make it clear to the firemen and paramedics and what have you, there's more to it than just that, to also come out and help those that need it most. And to remind others to pay attention to the weather, because I do believe that there's supposed to be some Arctic weather coming in this weekend. As we know, in most cases, the weatherman is only right 50% of the time. So hopefully they're 50 wrong on this one. And it's Super Bowl weekend, but we're expecting the Arctic blast as well as more snow. So let's look out for our neighbors and friends and our seniors and those that keep getting stuck, and also remind people of proper wear in this particular weather. So just wanted to reemphasize that, because I think it's so important for us to look out for each other as a community. And I understand you guys are going on the radio Friday, WLTH, because I know I'll be at work. But please also let our listeners and others know how much we appreciate our service people for the work they're doing, and also to remind all of our citizens, when you see those emergency lights, those police, firemen, please pull over, because it could be a friend, a relative, who knows who it could be. But we certainly want to pull over. And I try to put my flashers on to remind someone from behind me and in front that there's an emergency vehicle or something's wrong. Thank you for your time, and my condolences to anyone who has recently lost a loved one, not just to COVID-19, but because so much is happening with the COVID-19 is causing stress issues that normally probably wouldn't be there. And we see that in our news, and we see that in our community. We see it because as we meet right now, we're on Zoom. That's the new whatever. So for now, let's do what we can to support each other, lift each other in the most positive way. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Mr. President.
Councilman Weatherspoon.
Yes, thank you. I want to get back to general services and our first responders, in particular, Gary Fire Department, Gary Police Department. You know, one of the things I don't think the public quite recognizes the disadvantage that our first responders are working with in terms of equipment, in terms of personnel. And the job that they did this weekend, when you stop and look at it, it was actually outstanding with those considerations. These people, you know, I have watched them take I don't know, little equipment in all terms, whether it be police, fire, general services, and take the little equipment with the few personnel and work absolute miracles. And, you know, that is what they did this weekend, in particular, in terms of opening up our emergency routes and making sure that our equipments can get through, and of course, that we can make safe passages to work. There's still a tremendous amount of work to be done. Realistically, we look out and we see our side streets. We know our people are still working hard, working very diligently. And I just want to personally tell them to continue to work safe, you know, continue to work hard to make us proud of what they do. And again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman Weatherspoon. Councilman Godwin just had to step out briefly. I'm also, at this time, I'm going to give you guys a brief update on the Gary Youth Council. So as of last week, we did close the application process, and so that you all know, we had great response. We have almost 25 students who did apply and showed interest in this great opportunity. Over the next couple of days, the panel of Councilwoman Linda Barnes Cotwell, as well as Mrs. Katisha Tony, who's also supporting this effort, will be going over the applications. And we want to let the public, as well as the students, if they are listening, know that you will be contacted by the end of the week to get information if an interview is needed. So we are looking forward to working with you guys and selecting this. I think this will be a great onset to something great for the community, as well as for us as leaders to connect to our up and coming leaders, the youth. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Brewer.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do see that we have the police chief on, and we also see Dr. Walker. Are either one of them doing a presentation or anything this evening?
Dr. Walker will be.
Dr. Walker, okay. Well, I'd like to send also my thank yous to the police department, the fire department, and general service, and even parts, all the different ones that played a major part in making sure that the roads was cleared in a nice, reasonable manner. And I like to say I like the partnership that we have with other entities throughout the city. I didn't see a lot of snow thrown in the street like I normally see from side businesses, clearing their walks and things of that nature. Things was kind of put where they should have been put. And I also see a lot of residents now are starting to get the picture about where they should put it and where they shouldn't put it. But I still saw a lot of cars inside of the snow routes. Cars that's either been in car accidents, look like they're on flats, still that nature there. They're still in those areas. And I know those things definitely impact general service and other departments in doing a even better job than what they did. So I would like to see if we can make sure we bring that to the attention also, because Councilman Brown said there is more weather that's coming, bad weather that's coming anyway. To our police chief, I have been noticing there is an increase in carjackings that's been happening. A lot of people been going on high-speed chases throughout the city. And I would like to know if you can give me a full update on where we are at with these different things here. I see we had the second homicide inside our city, and I would like to just get a list of the roster of the homicide that we had in last year. I would just like to know where we at with the numbers, but also I get every year a listing of all the names, and I try and communicate some kind of way with those families. So I would like to get a list of those also. But if you can just briefly walk us through where we are at with the crime inside the city, Chief. Chief Evans. I see you're muted if you're trying to talk.
Mr. President, then if no one is going to say anything right now, then I would like to take advantage of this opportunity to also thank all of our public, safety workers who have been so kind to take good care of our streets. And I want to thank the fire chief and the police chief for calling personally to see if we had some seniors in our district who especially needed some help. So I want to thank them. I don't want to sit here and not say anything because they have been kind and they have done so much to help us. And I want to thank them very much for all that they've done. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman Brown.
The President.
Mr. President.
Yeah, Chief Evans
may not be available.
Okay. Well,
I'll let Chief Evans speak first, and then I'll come in. You can go ahead.
So until Chief Evans come, also I'll have some conversation when Dr. Walker give his presentation once he get done also. But my last thing is also the Jensen Center. It is been brought to my attention that Jensen Center has completely closed the deal on the Jensen Center, and the employees have been given their papers to exit. Had some talk with some of the employees there, and a little disheartened the way some things were done. Not a complete 24 hours was given to them that today was going to be their last day over there. But also, I do have some concerns how the Genesis Center was closed. The deal is closed. What I'm hearing, the deal is completely closed, but the board was never convened to do away with the items inside the convention center. There was still some things that need to take place there. There are some financial things that needs to take place over there also. And there's a number of documents that's over there that need to be properly disposed, not just by someone coming in grabbing papers and throwing them in another building. Those things should be properly disposed with social security numbers and things of that nature. So I do have a great concern about that. I would like to have a response by the administration. I would not like to take it to the investigation committee to see how this whole process was done. But if I have to, I would do just that. But I would like to see how that complete process was done in closing the Genesis Center. Because my understanding is the board has not reconvened, even for my last meeting, we talked about it. And now that the deal is completely closed, there's a number of items that were still there that's not there now. That's, as far as I'm concerned, not counted for. And I see the chief is now up now too.
Thank you, Councilman Brewer. And so Chief Evans and then Chief Evans.
Yes, sir. I believe the question was on carjack. I want to make sure I fully understand what you were asking information on.
Yeah, so it was about the carjackings inside our city, and also there's been a high number of high-speed chase. And I also asked, stated about I believe it's 2 homicides that we have had thus far, and also would like to get a listing of the homicides from 2020.
Okay. I would prefer to talk about the listing of the homicides with you in our public safety meeting that we're going to have. I mean, I have no problem sharing that information. But let's talk about the carjackings. It actually has been a question I've been asked often at the barbershop on the weekends, in the store. If the carjacking increase, which has happened in Illinois and other places, has come here. And the quick answer to that is no, we have not seen an exorbitant amount of carjacking in our city. What we have had, and we have this every year, is an exorbitant amount of cars being taken from gas stations and stores when people leave them running and go inside and do shopping. If you have a Bluetooth key fob, most people can think the car is secure, but they can drive off with your car until they turn it off. And we have put out a public service announcement about not doing that. As far as the homicides that have occurred, yes, we have had those 2 homicides this year, with our first one just a week ago, and we had another one just on the 30th. Those 2 are being investigated by our Metro Homicide Unit, as well as we're cooperating with the Maryville Police Department on the last homicide because that person resided in their city. I think your last question was about, I'm drawing a blank here. You asked one more question.
I believe
high-speed chases.
Yes.
So the Gary Police Department has a strict policy on high-speed chases as far as when we engage in them and when we disengage in those, so that we don't get in a situation where we may be chasing somebody or attempting to stop somebody who simply is in fear because they have some type of traffic violation, and we do stop those through our supervision. However, I will remind the council that last year we did get involved in a high-speed chase after a homicide in Glen Park. We chased that person to Chicago and we captured him. So there are circumstances in which following somebody and attempting to stop them is very warranted. That subject had just killed someone in Glen Park, got in a car, carjacked someone. Our officer who was off duty actually observed it and actually chased the individual all the way to Chicago, Illinois. And with the help of the Chicago Police Department, we were able to capture that person in Chicago. That being said, the high-speed chases that have occurred in our city recently have been done by outside agencies that have started these chases or these pursuits, sometimes in the city or the highway. And we do our best to try to prevent that from happening, but we don't have any control over when they do that, nor are we always informed up front. We're all on shared dispatch, but sometimes that information comes to us a little slowly. So I can just speak for the Gary Police Department and our policy to terminate the pursuits when they become dangerous and to try to not pursue someone when we don't think is warranted. Of course, in the case of a homicide or even a robbery, it may be something that we chase them for a little bit, but once it leaves our city or gets to where it's a dangerous situation, we do terminate that.
Yeah, Well, that was one of my main issues. I've seen more or less outside, and I definitely don't have a problem with it. But it seemed like these criminals seem like they're leaving other communities and fleeing to Gary all of a sudden now. We're starting to see more of the chases, and they are pursuing them. And I believe all of them, they have pretty much caught them too, with them even damaging property inside the city of Gary. But there has been a high number just recent inside the city with the high-speed chases where other departments are coming inside doing the chases, and I by no means have any problem with them, with you or any other department doing the chases. Thank you, Chief.
I would just say this, that, you know, the high number of people that have moved to our city from other places, and sometimes they are residents and they may shop or do business elsewhere and they're coming back here. Sometimes when a person is in fear or scared, the first place they try to go to is home, to familiar ground. I'm very pleased to say that many of these individuals have been captured and no one has been seriously hurt, and we hope that continues. Thank you.
Chief, one last question though. I got a call today stating that Illinois plates that's expired, there's nothing been done for us towing or ticketing anything because so-called the license branch is down in Illinois. So you all giving them some type of leeway of 30 days or something of that nature there on expired plates?
No, that's not true. Because of COVID, the license branches were behind in both Illinois and Indiana. So the grace period that we would give has been extended to a minor degree, but that is pretty much over with. If we stop you with expired plates, whether it's Illinois or Indiana, you will be ticketed accordingly. And that ticket can lead you, if you're Indiana residents, to plating your vehicle here. I just had a conversation with the area chiefs from Griffith, Highland, Hammond, and others, and we talked about the outside plates in all of our communities and how it's such a phenomenon that we have an influx of people coming from other states. I'll just put Illinois as one of them, and they come and live in all of our communities, and they don't want to plate their cars because of the taxes that are associated with them. One thing that we are doing is increasing our enforcement of that, but no, we're not giving any grace to anyone because of the license bureau issue. That's between them and the license bureau. And many times when we encounter persons who has expired plates and we run them, their plates have been expired for multiple months. They've had plenty of time to get their plates.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
President.
Councilman Lay.
Yeah, couple of points. Chief O'Donnell called me, and certainly he called me because I was a senior, not a member of the council. But I told him under the circumstances, I certainly would not accept the services ahead of others. But I do thank him for the courtesy of the call. On 19th and Broadway, the site for the covert vaccination is up there now in terms of directions, who to call and how you get it. It will be up there probably until Valentine's Day, and then I will change it for a couple of days. Dr. Powell will be on Channel 5. He's going to be interviewed by Al Roper on February the 8th at 9 o'clock. It's based upon his research in prostate cancer, so that may be something people will have an interest in watching. The other thing is, I certainly would like to give credit to our deputy mayor / corporation counsel, Trent McCain. That suggestion that I had made concerning postponement of payments to the sanitary district, he of course picked it up and ran with it. Currently, they have in fact approved 1 year. We asked for 2. The city was given a pass in terms of there would be no penalties, anything of that nature, for the failure to pay approximately $600,000+ on January the 31st. We're still awaiting, and again, Attorney McCain is working directly. I believe it was at EPA, and it could be also DOJ, to see about the second year. I had a brief conversation with the mayor. He, of course, is going to be bringing it to the council. He's trying to determine exactly how he wants to spend the funds he received in terms of postponement. It appears he will try to restore some of the services for the city, left him with a approximately $600,000 problem. And again, he didn't say specifically that he would use it all, but he certainly will be coming. Another thing very quickly, there are 3 positions on the advisory board for the school city, 3rd, 5th, and 6th district. On the radio last Wednesday, I believe it was, I gave out some wrong information. What you have to do is apply directly to the emergency manager by sending your resume and a letter to Mrs. Emma Patton at 900 Jerry Street, which is Westside High School. Attention, emergency manager, Dr. McNulty. At that, I believe the cutoff date, as I've read in her announcement, I believe it's the 8th of February. And what will occur at that time, your resume and letters will be turned over to the advisory board, who will conduct interviews, and they will make the determination as to who will receive the appointments in the 3rd, 5th, and 6th. And the reason for that, those are staggered terms. They have been staggered since 1992. These individuals will be appointed for 2 years, and then they have to run again. That again is to maintain the stagger on this advisory board. And as I understand it further, the advisory board itself will interview interview, I would assume sometime in the month of February. They haven't decided that date. And they will make the appointments on March the 9th, which is the second Tuesday in the month of March. They meet on the normal meeting was on the 2nd and 4th. I guess they only do it maybe, I think, once a month on the 2nd. So again, I did that because initially I said you could send your letter and resume to the secretary of the board, Norman Bailey. That's incorrect. You should send it to the school system. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman Lay, and I'm glad you made that announcement because Mr. Bruggs, who's the advisory board president, asked me to have people send them to him. So I guess there was some confusion about where these should be going, but I think in any event, I know publicly, McNulty had said that's where it should be.
Yeah, that again, it appears to me whenever I think Dr. McNulty is incorrect, I certainly will voice when she's incorrect. I personally think she's trying to help the advisory board. She has a website, of course, resources way beyond that board. Again, I think there may have been some misreading of what's going on. She just simply said, send it to her. She would make it available to the board. The ultimate decision is made by the advisory board. Right. It really is. And 3rd, 5th, and 6th, she's simply citing the law. In other words, the 1st, 2nd, 4th, and at large, the initial in 92 were the ones that received 4 years. So that means your board is constantly being staggered. I don't doubt it that there seems to be some confusion, but if I was the public, I would send it to Dr. McNulty. I really would. That seems to be the better place, and she can turn it over to the board. If you want to send it, if you send it to anyone other than her, send out 2. You can give the board one if they just so desire one, but I would send mine to Dr. McNulty.
Great, thank you, Councilman Lay. I have some announcements. I want to start with thanking the City, of course, General Services for the snow removal, as well as the fire chief. We do have, we're a little hilly out here in Miller and in other parts of the 1st District. And we do have some streets that I think are going to need some salt or maybe some sand, even in some cases, as this Arctic blast comes through. And some of those hills, it can be difficult to get up if that snow that's still there begins to freeze. So just wanted to put out there, I did have some residents to express concerns about some of our streets, not the main ones, but some of the other streets that you've got to use to get to the main streets. So take a look at that, please. I also want to announce that St. Mary of the Lake, one of the dynamic churches in the First District on Miller Avenue, is having their annual fish fry. And the fish fry will be a drive-through fish fry in light of COVID. It will be on Friday, February the 19th from 4 p.m. until 7 p.m. The price is $15 each, and it's in support of St. Mary of the Lake's effort. So Friday, February the 19th from 4 to 7 p.m. There will be a drive-through fish fry at St. Mary of the Lake, $15 per person. Also, Beyond Four Walls Church, we know that already happened today, but every Tuesday, they have free food boxes. Those are great boxes, meat, protein, dairy, vegetables, fruit, 15 and 20-pound boxes that they give out. They have, I think, 2,000 of them now or so every week. So every Tuesday at 11 a.m. at 875 South Lake Street, you can go pick up your food box, first come, first serve. Many come before 11 a.m., just FYI. So that's Beyond Four Walls. Also, the Revolution Church at 301 South Lake Street has a free food box giveaway. I believe theirs is every Wednesday. So tomorrow at 2 p.m., they also have bread from Panera, as well as general food in their boxes beginning at 2 p.m. at 301 South Lake Street. Also, the First District, we will have our first community meeting of the year by Zoom. February 25th at 6:30 p.m. We'll be graced by our First District legislators, Senator Eddie Melton, as well as Representative Reagan Hatcher, who also is on the call this evening. We want to recognize her as a former councilperson, but we're looking forward to hearing from both Senator Melton and Representative Hatcher in terms of what's happening in Indianapolis and the work that they're doing to improve the quality of life for citizens of Gary. That will be February 25th at 6:30 p.m. Via Zoom. I will be sending out about 600 to 700 letters in the next 10 days to as many First District residents as I can with a lot of information and upcoming meetings. If you do not receive one of those letters in the next 10 days, please do call the Gary Common Council office and let us know to make sure that we have you on our list. Also, we will have an executive session of the Common Council on Monday, February the 8th at 4:00 p.m. To discuss redevelopment properties. And you will get a notice to that effect very soon, colleagues. Also, I have a lot of announcements this evening. The Edna Manor Revitalization Program, which is led by Penelope Love, is having a joint event with Gary Game Changers to discuss real estate development and property improvement opportunities. That will be on Monday, February 8th, 2021 at 7:00 p.m. To register, please call 219-225-6449, or you can email amrp2014@yahoo.com. Again, that will be Monday, February the 8th, 2021 at 7:00 p.m. That's a meetup to discuss real estate improvement opportunities in the community. I think that's all for now. Any other members for special and select? All right. Hearing and seeing none, council pending ordinances and resolutions on third and or final reading.
CPO 2020-80, an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Gary, providing for a hearing and public comment on the transfer sale of certain properties formerly owned by GUA, sponsored by AJ Bender Redevelopment Department.
Mr. President, is anyone on from redevelopment? Because I want to know, will they have the information prepared if I schedule a meeting for next Tuesday? If we need longer, I would like to know before we schedule a meeting.
Mr. President, this is Rodney Pohl, the attorney for the Redevelopment Commission. As far as availability for a meeting on next Tuesday. I don't have an answer for as to whether or not I can make the commissioners and or the directors, or sorry, the commissioners and or the directors available, but I can definitely ask and get back to the commission or get back to the council.
Okay. Well, because it seems like they have some issues there, but I don't plan on doing this on third and final. So, Mr. President, I will defer this to committee, and I'll give you all a little time to the 23rd at 5 p.m.
All right, so it's been moved to the first CPO 2020-80 to the Planning and Development Committee for a meeting on February 23rd, 2021 at what time?
5 p.m.
At 5 o'clock p.m. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded by Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell. Any questions or discussion?
I just have one question, Mr. President. And it's not even a question, it's just a comment from Attorney Paul. So Attorney Paul, I just want to make sure that it's understood. It's not more so if they could meet with us, but we want to make sure that the additional properties, the acts that we have from the last meeting in terms of how they're going to relay that information. I think we asked for it broken down into 50 different ordinances or, or whatever, an ordinance with 50 different properties, I believe. So I think, and Chairman Brewer, let me know if that's incorrect. I think that's what we need, right? Like that should be completed prior and sent to the council prior to that meeting so that we can discuss it in that meeting.
That's correct. And the main one, I believe the administration expressed the satellite program that you all had residents that was waiting to get those. So I did request if you can bring us all the satellites first so we can get those out if residents are waiting to obtain those properties, if we can deal with those first and then move forward.
Okay, in that case, I think that should be available. I think that we can make that available by because that's simply just going through the Excel spreadsheet and just dividing those into parcels or groups of 50. I think there shouldn't be an issue with setting that for the next committee meeting. Additionally, I did have a discussion with the director of redevelopment, and we may be proposing another essentially another maybe amendment or definitely a different structure for how these would be proposed to the council to kind of make it as simple as possible by categorization of the zoning, therefore just kind of taking out the parcels that would be applicable for the side lot program, which I know that everybody's eager to ensure that we can get those taken care of quickly for those individuals that are trying to get those parcels, and then other parcels that are zoned separately, which I know the council would like to have more, much more of more time to look at and kind of understand as far as how those would be dispersed. Does that make sense?
President,
Councilman Lay.
it appears Attorney Poe is changing our requirements. In other words, no matter how it comes no more than 50 at a time. In other words, you give us as as Councilman Brewer has already said, give us those as a priority. So if you got, let's say 100, you would just give us two ordinances.
And that's fine. Again, that was just something we were discussing. We could discuss that in committee. We're really just kind of trying to figure out, both how to ensure that we're following what the council prefers, and then also looking at it from the standpoint of, okay, well, how are we going to do these as far as order of preference or order of essentially trying to get them done as efficiently as possible.
Right, but again, it looks like to me it's simply a division. You determine what side lots. I mean, and I don't know how many it is out of your 600. That's easy, I would think. Then the next thing is divided by 50. That tells you the number of ordinances you have to bring. That is, it's not only simple, it's what we requested. So request may be supreme to making it simple, what we requested.
Yes, and I will keep it on the 23rd so that way you all can meet the request of the council So that way, I don't want to go inside committee discussing what we want. That's why we're stating it right now, what we should look for in committee and move forward at that time. So I want to give you all ample time to do what you need to do before we meet. Thank you, Mr. President. I'll make a motion to move this to committee, CPO 2020-80 to committee February the 23rd at 5 p.m.
Second,
Moved and properly seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, vote is 9-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. With a vote of 9-0, CPO 2020-80 is moved back to the Planning and Development Committee with a meeting on February 23rd at 5:00 p.m. via Zoom.
CPO 2020-81, an ordinance approving incentive pay for the suppression employees in the City of Gary Fire Department with EMT or paramedic certification. Sponsored by Mayor Jerome Prince, City of Gary, Arlene Colvin, Esquire, acting City Controller.
President,
Councilwoman Brown.
I move for passage of CPO 2020-80 on third and final reading.
Second,
It's been moved and properly seconded. We'll have the overview at this time.
Mr. President, that's 81 for the record.
81.
I'm sorry, 81.
Yes,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Mr. President, 2020-81 is an ordinance approving incentive pay for fire suppression personnel who have EMT or paramedic certifications. These are firefighters who actually have certifications to work as EMT or paramedics. This pay has been approved on a yearly basis, but the actual authorization for the incentive pay was never brought to the council. So this is a request to authorize this certification pay for the firefighters.
Any questions or discussions, council members? Seeing and hearing.
Mr. Chair.
Council Attorney Williams.
Yes, we previously spoke about the language being changed so it would reflect retroactively. I understand from Attorney Colvin that the dollar amount didn't need to be in there, but the language that this would be retroactive to, I assume it was 2012. That's the resolution that the Fire Commission passed. I'm not sure if it started in 12 or 13, but is that language in the new document ordinance?
It's not Attorney Williams, but I can certainly do that.
Okay, yeah, I'd recommend that because I understand there was a State Board of Accounts finding, but now that we are aware, we should correct it and make it retroactive to cover when the first disbursements. Okay, thank you.
Before council, before it's signed by the council.
Thank you, Attorney Williams and Colvin. Almost like a law firm, Williams and Colvin. Thank you. There being no other.
Sounds good to me.
Except she should be first.
I agree. I agree.
There being no other questions or discussion, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, vote is 9-0.
With a vote of 9-0, CPO 2020-81 passes and is so ordered.
CPO 2020-82, an ordinance by the Gary Common Council establishing a holiday schedule for the City of Gary in calendar year 2021, sponsored by members of the Gary Common Council.
Councilwoman Brown.
Mr. President, I move for passage of 2020-82. However, we need to make sure that we are on the same page with this one. Because we went back and forth for the past 2 meetings. And so we need to make sure that we're on the same page. That's all.
Yes, and so I'm going to make an amendment, and I believe Councilman Brewer is going to seek to make an amendment too. Start with the, is there a second?
Second.
Properly seconded by Councilwoman Burns Caldwell. At this time, we'll have the overview. Attorney Colvin.
Well, it's a council resolution,
Well, actually, yeah, I think
council ordinance.
it's a council ordinance, so I think we really should do the overview. However, what has happened on this ordinance, there is one particular holiday in there that we cannot seem to come to terms on. And so we need to make up our minds what we're going to do, and that was Columbus Day. What are we going to do as it relates to Columbus Day?
Mr. President?
Yes, Councilman Brewer.
At this time, I would like to make a motion that we amend Columbus Day from the calendar, and we will insert July the 10th as Mayor Richard Gordon Hatcher Day inside the city of Gary. Columbus Day has been excluded for previous years inside of our calendar. This year has gotten put back in place because our calendar was compared with the county calendar. That's the only reason why you really see Columbus Day in here now. So I'm asking that we will exclude Columbus Day as we have done in the previous years, and we will set a new holiday in place as the Richard Gordon Hatcher holiday, July the 10th. That's my motion at this time.
Can I ask a question? Will this be forthgoing for every year from now on, or is just this for just this year?
It will be my pleasure, as long as I'm on the council, to make sure it's on there every year. But each council has the pleasure to do what they want to do with the holiday calendar.
Okay. Second.
Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded. Any questions or discussion?
Can I get that date again?
That is July the 10th. He was born July 10th, 1933.
Mr. President,
Yes, Councilman Lay.
I think once we make the change, it's in perpetuity. I don't think another council is going to come along and change it. In other words, again, I think we're sort of forgetting how this all started. It started by there being a question concerning the holiday for Columbus, for Columbus Day. As I understand it, it's tied everywhere, but in terms of the city of Gary, it's in the county, it's probably at the state, maybe in banks, it may be in the school system. And so I would suggest, since I recommended that it be called the Richard Gordon Hatcher Day, be simply substituted for October the 11th. And that way, it's a holiday for us, let other people celebrate what they want. I think we just dropped it in on July the 10th. It would be a very narrow celebration. And I think, of course, the former mayor deserves to be celebrated, or possibly is being celebrated other places. I anticipate your amendment, Mr. President, will be to substitute it in on October the 11th or Columbus Day. So therefore, even though I've grown fonder and fonder of Councilman Brewer, I cannot support his amendment. I will wait to see if it does not pass, that we use the October 11th day. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman Lay. I as I indicated earlier, will make a motion to amend it for it to be the second Monday in October. And here's why. Here's the 3 main reasons. Number one, I think it's important that we're consistent and that we're employee friendly. If my child is out of school If my spouse is not at work, we know the federal government, the county government, we know 2 of our unions already have this day designated as part of their contract. It's just a matter of convenience that why be off on a day when no one else is off? And so I think it's important that we are employee minded when we make these kinds of decisions as they impact a lot of people. Secondly, I think absolutely Mayor Richard Gordon Hatcher, who I was privileged to meet on multiple occasions, certainly deserves a day. And I think what I like the idea about Columbus Day is that it's subversive. It's taking something that many people view as negative in terms of colonialism and conquering people and turning it into something that's positive, focusing on a freedom fighter, a fighter for justice, a fighter for equality, a fighter for opportunity. And so we're taking a holiday that everybody else is celebrating and turning it on its head to refocus our attention to freedom, justice, and equality through the life of Mayor Richard Gordon Hatcher. And my third point is this. Mayor Hatcher's last public appearance, to my knowledge, in terms of the city of Gary, was at the unveiling of his statue, which sits outside of City Hall, and that took place on October 9th, 2019. And so when we celebrate it on the second Monday of October, there will also be a reminder of that day where he was present, as well as his wife and children and colleagues throughout the years to memorialize. That was the day the city chose to memorialize his statue. He was alive to smell his flowers. And so I think that's even further reason for us to keep it on the second Monday in October. And so I will be voting no on this, even though Councilman Brewer is a very good friend of mine. It's certainly not personal. But I will be voting no on this and will encourage my colleagues to do the same. Any other questions or discussion?
Mr. President.
Councilman Witherspoon?
Yes, I am in agreement. You know, my mindset on all this, because, you know, the way I understood it, we wanted to do something for the employees in particular. And the way I had felt about it, I wanted to see a floating holiday. But, you know, that did not happen. But I would have to be in agreement with you. And one of the main reasons, I was just looking at the calendar, July the 10th is on a Saturday. So it would only make sense, because if we did pick July 10th this year, it would only complicate matters. So I am in agreement with you, and I will be voting no myself on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Witherspoon. Any other question or discussion?
And Mr. President?
Councilman Brewer?
Yes, that is true. And we did bring that out that July 10th this year will fall on a Saturday. So I would also like to move by his birthday be celebrated on that Monday. That would be on. So I reinstate my motion to be on the 12th, which would be that Monday. We don't celebrate any holidays for our Martin Luther King or anyone if their birthday falls like on a weekend. It's always, or any other day, it's always celebrated on that Monday. So in this instance here, by Mayor Hatcher's birthday falling on a Saturday, I will move my motion that will be that Monday. That will be the 12th that we will honor him. We have done this in the past where we have eliminated Columbus Day because it was controversial by residents that brought it to this council attention. It was a previous council then. I feel like Mayor Hatcher is a personal statue where his day should not be shared, or where we should use him as a shadow over Columbus, which is such a controversial holiday in the Black community. And I feel Mayor Hatcher is worthy of his own day, his own identity, because he was definitely a person of that stature that stood out on his own. And just for him to run for political office during that era of racism and things of that nature that took place, it took courage. It took a lot of gut to do what he did. And I appreciate what he stood for, what he did. And so that would be my amendment. His birthday is the 10th, but I would move that we would celebrate it on the 12th. That'll be that Monday.
Mr. Chair.
Any other question or discussion?
Yes.
Councilman Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councilman Brewer, one of the things that I noticed is when we do celebrate Dr. King's holiday, it's on a specific Monday, second, third Monday of the month. If you're going to address this holiday in the month of July, you should pick a specific Monday in particular for it to be on. the points that our president made as well as Councilman Lay are good points. I think what the country is doing by removing Confederate flags, statues, taking away names of generals who were slave owners, was a way of saying that we're going to reverse this. We can take a Columbus Day that's already in existence and make it in honor of a great man that we had. And in the process, State Board of Accounts and all those other entities that we have to deal with, the unions and everything else, we're still celebrating the great man. And we're totally eliminating something that doesn't represent who we are. And it's consistent because it's on a particular Monday in which these celebrations are held. You know, I think July 10th is a great day. My grandfather was born July 10th, and he was my first role model beside my father. So I think it's a great day. However, I think with consistency as far as celebrations go, you have to pick a specific Monday to have that particular celebration. And therefore, I would ask you, to reconsider and to choose a day that we can turn around and represent a great man from our community and still at the same time be in line with the other communities that are celebrating. And then and eventually the public will realize how important the day is, and it would no longer be on the calendars as Columbus Days in other communities. Maybe we can then have the county council change it and other communities to Richard Gordon Hatcher Day, that particular day, which is a Columbus Day now. That's what I would ask you to do. I would suggest you do that because to me, I think what you're doing is great. I think we're honoring a great man, but I would just like to see some consistency in what already exists by just eliminating something that does not represent who we are and putting something in there that does. And when people say, well, why are you not celebrating Columbus Day? Now we have a history lesson as to why it's Richard Gordon Hatcher Day. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman Brown. Any other questions or discussion?
Mr. President,
Attorney Williams?
yes, whichever motion is successful, if it would be proper to make it retroactive, given the fact that we've already celebrated MLK, and I thank Attorney Colvin for updating me on that.
So that wouldn't be for the amendment, right? That'd be for
The calendar itself.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. Okay.
Yep.
Any other question or discussion? All right.
President, in the interest of unanimity, as Councilman Michael Brown said, I would also ask Mr. Brewer to withdraw his motion, and therefore the only one pending you would have to make your motion. But may as well be unanimous on this.
Well, I will leave my motion there. I don't know what the consistency is of the rest of the council. I believe only 4 has spoken at this time, so I would leave the motion in place to see.
So if there's no other question or discussion, seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam.
One more time. Hold on, Mr. President.
Councilman Brown?
One more time. So one more time, Councilman Brewer, we don't want to have this kind of dialogue where we're going back and forth. We're asking you, and I understand you say only 4 people have spoken, and you're looking for a 5-4 to pass. I respect that. But at the same time, I'm just asking you to reconsider your motion.
I do understand my colleagues, but I have been reached out by citizens that do share my same sentiments by giving Mayor Hatcher his own identity, his own day. So that's why I'm sticking to that by the people that have contacted me. So they share my sentiments from watching the committee meeting about that day, and they think it's a good idea. So I want to go with you every way the vote goes. If it fails, I will support President Godwin if it fails. So but I will vote. I want to let the people know that I do represent, they have reached out to me, that I did at least put it forth. That's all.
Mr. President,
Councilman
what I don't want to do is vote against something regarding a great man who has served our community. What I'm asking you to do, and I understand your position as a councilman, what I'm asking you to do is to just make a simple amendment. We still would celebrate a great man. It just would be on a different day, and it would be in alliance to what a lot of communities have done to take a day like that one and make it a day like you want it to be. and then it becomes a history lesson. Because
Well, Councilman Brown, for the past at least 4 years, we have not even celebrated that day. And it was never an issue that we didn't even celebrate it. We didn't even have it as a calendar. We basically gave incentives and we gave extra days for the Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve as whole days. So we didn't even celebrate Columbus Day. We're only dealing with this now because it's really a technicality that was put back on the calendar schedule that we're dealing with this even now. But for at least for the past 4 years, we never even celebrated in the city. We stopped celebrating Columbus Day altogether.
Mr. President, actually, there are 5 votes for October the 11th, or the Monday replacing Columbus. The person that did not speak today previously has spoken. That's our Vice President, Ty Atkins in the 4th District. She recently has indicated that she would support your amendment. But we do, the 5 votes there unless she has changed her mind, at least 5. In the meantime, let's just, I guess, just have roll call.
With that, Mr. Lay, I would not thank you for bringing that out. I will withdraw my motion at this time. Thank you, Mr. Lay and Councilman Brown.
thank you, Mr. Councilman Brewer.
So there's a motion to withdraw the previous motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and properly seconded. Do we need to vote on that withdrawal, Attorney Williams?
Yes,
All right.
you do.
Thank you. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes,
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, vote is 9-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. With vote of 9-0, the motion is withdrawn. This time, I'd like to make a motion to make Richard Gordon Hatcher Day the second Monday in October.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded by Councilman Lawrence Caldwell. Any questions or discussion?
Yes, Mr. President.
Again, for the record, I'm sorry. Again, for the record, Mr. President, if you can make it known in the motion that it's being done retroactive to January 1st.
Now, is that for the amendment or when we vote on it as amended?
When you vote on it as amended.
Okay.
I just wanted to put it out there. Okay.
Yes, sir. Councilman Brown?
Councilman Brewer, I want to thank you for your passion that you had to get this holiday, because it's so important for all of us. And I wanted to say earlier about how before we passed the King holiday, how, you know, we used to ride around with our headlights on all day in our cars to show that we wanted a holiday, a national holiday for Dr. King. And we had all kind of activities. And I think that our mayor deserves that. And I applaud you and everyone that's worked so diligently with this, because it's certainly something to support. And it's certainly a history lesson, because that's what I'm looking for more than anything else, for people to understand the history of our great mayor, former Mayor Richard Gordon Hatcher, and for people to have that discussion. And I just want to thank you for your passion and how you have done everything in your power to make sure that this council does the right thing by passing this ordinance. Thank you, Councilman Hill, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman Brown. Any other question or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
yes,
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 9-0.
The vote of 9-0, CPO 2020-82 is amended. At this point, we would need to take a vote on CPO 2020-82 as amended, and that it will be retroactive. Is that correct, Attorney Williams? I think that's correct.
It is. It's
Okay.
correct. All right.
I think we need any further questions or discussion. I will just, if it's okay, acknowledge former councilwoman and current state rep Hatcher, who wrote here, I certainly appreciate the effort and initiative to celebrate my father's contribution to the city of Gary.
President Godwin.
Okay.
President Godwin, this is Reagan. That's my sister. She is.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
That's Renee Hatcher.
Okay, I won't put that on you though. But I really want you to know that that we are looking forward to celebrating this day in October as we memorialize the statue and the great man that he worked to get for freedom, justice, and equality. If there's no other question and discussion, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Councilman Brewer.
I do understand we inside of a vote. I just can't help to see the chat that I just seen that I believe you had started reading by the daughter of Mayor Hatcher. The disappointment that she feels by tackling along to Columbus Day. I think that needs to be noted, that the daughter has spoken about the disappointment that she has about her Father's Day being attached to Columbus Day. It's inside the chat. It did come up on the screen where everyone can see it. I just didn't want to go and we not note the response from the daughter that's not on here, but she did comment inside the chat. But she does thank us for the ordinance.
Mr. President.
Thank you, and I will also just quickly note, if I can, Councilman Lay, that there's 3 daughters on the chat. So Councilman Reagan Hatcher made it clear that it wasn't her who said the chat that you said, but Ms. Rachelle Hatcher says, I thank the council for passing this ordinance. I think it's a lovely tribute to my father and a wonderful way to keep the citizens of Gary informed of who he was and what his extraordinary work for the city of Gary was. You prefer to be on his birthday, but she appreciates any day. So, Councilman Lay?
Yeah, I think, and again, I knew the former mayor of Gary very well. I met him in 1963, 2544 Virginia Street. I will never forget that day. Again, I think the significant thing here is that we're honoring him. So what we're doing is replacing a person that never made it to America. So now if someone thinks we're substituting, we were getting rid of October the 11th. You made that suggestion, Mr. President. I simply said, let's substitute a person I have a great deal of respect for, Richard Hatcher. Matter of fact, I was one of his youngest appointees. I was appointed in 1968 when he took office. So I'm sorry she feels that way. I certainly don't. I once called him the Prince of Darkness. He just simply, I know it was funny, but it was during a conversation of a bunch of attorneys, which is in fact the last time I met with a bunch of attorneys. We were in a disagreement about something. I certainly support the mayor and former mayor, and I just simply have a great deal of respect. So I don't think, I'm sorry she feels we somehow have offended his name. I don't think so. I really don't. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Former Councilwoman State Rep Hatcher.
Hi, yes, everybody, and thank you, Rachelle, Renee, and I'm sorry I'm not on video. I'm just leaving the State House. We had a really long day today, but Rachelle, Renee, and I all appreciate you all thinking of Dad and going through this process. I think we all are very happy that the city and the council will be recognizing him on a yearly basis for all his achievements. And I certainly thank Attorney Lay for coming up with the thought. And I know a few of us have talked about it. We all really appreciate it. I think what Renee is saying, and if you all know Renee, you know how strongly she feels about Dad's legacy, especially here in the city of Gary, that replacing a holiday with him attaches it to something that may not be as seen as important as attaching it to his own birthday. However, as I said in the beginning, either way, we're all very happy about it being named for him. And I got a chance to talk to Councilman Brewer a couple weeks ago, and he called and asked what I thought, and I told him that I would support it either way. And again, I'm getting these texts from my sister on the side here. And also they want me to remind the council that before Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson left, she had an executive order that named Grant Street after our father.
Yeah,
And
right.
so we'd also like to get back to that whenever we can. Thank you.
Thank you, State Rep Hatcher. We appreciate that, and we will be following up on Grant Street as well. I know that there were some technicalities, but we want to make sure that that moves forward. Any other question or discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilman Brewer.
just with the statement that's been rendered by Mayor Hatcher's daughter, I know what I said to the council, but I like to always be upfront. In a clear heart and clear conscience, I cannot support this. I'm sorry, you all. I know I told you all I would, but with a clear conscience, I really cannot support it. I don't feel anywhere the unction to support it with sharing his day with Columbus Day. So my vote will be no. Sorry.
All right, thank you, Councilman Brewer. Any other question or discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Councilman Brown.
So I just want one more time to say this is a history lesson for all of us. Mayor Hatcher was a great man. He did a lot of great things. I don't believe, I've said before, I wouldn't have been the first African American to serve as a county clerk in the entire state if it weren't for what Mayor Hatcher did. I was just being honest with you from a standpoint of teaching people the importance of the man that he is, and hoping that eventually, as I said earlier, the county would change from Columbus State to Richard Gordon Hatcher and further down to the state. I just looked at this as a starting point because that's how I saw Dr. King's holiday. There was a starting point. And so that's where I'm at. And I understand where you come from. I see the passion on your face. I see the pain as well as I feel it myself because we're trying to honor him in the best way we know how. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. If there's no other question or discussion, we can have the roll call.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
No.
Councilwoman Brown,
I'm not sure what the motion is, so I don't know what my vote is.
We've already amended it, so it's just basically voting on the passage of CPO 2020-82 as amended.
Okay. Okay, yes.
Councilman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8 yes, 1 no.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. With 8 votes in the affirmative, CPO 2020-82 as amended and retroactive passes and is so ordered.
CPO 2021-01, an ordinance establishing a new Fund 876 and budget for the City of Gary Fire Department, sponsored by Mayor Jerome Prince, City of Gary, Arlene Colvin, Chief of Staff.
President,
Councilwoman Brown.
I move passage on all 3 readings.
Wait, I think that one was
On third and final. Is that mine or yours?
It's mine, Councilwoman.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay. Mr. President, I move for passage of ordinance CPO 2021-01 on third and final.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. We'll have the overview at this time.
Mr. President, CPO 2021-01 is an ordinance establishing a new fund and budget for a grant that the fire department has received from NIPSCO. The fire department has received $5,000 for the purchase of carbon monoxide detectors. And we like to establish a fund so that these dollars can be spent for that purpose.
Thank you, Attorney Colvin. Any questions or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell, Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, vote is 9-0.
The vote of 9-0, CPO 2021-01 passes and is so ordered.
CPO 2021-02, an ordinance amending Title 15 entitled Land Uses, Chapter 123 entitled Zoning Code of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Gary, Indiana. Petitioner is Ernestine Harper Price, 1987 Arthur Street, Gary, Indiana. Property at 1987 Arthur Street, Gary, Indiana.
Councilman Brewer.
Mr. President, move for passage of CPO 2021-02 on third and final.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilman Brewer and seconded by Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell. We'll have a vote here at this time. Mr. Berea.
Thank you. I will share my screen to provide the overview. We went over in the plan committee meeting. The owner petitioner is Ernestine Harper Price. I saw her on this call at the very beginning. I don't know if she's still on. The affected real estate is 1987 Arthur Street. And the petitioner is requesting a special use permit to establish a daycare on a residential property in accordance with Municipal Code Section 123-59. Sent out 75 mailings. At the time of the first BZA meeting on October 15th, we received 3 back that were not opposed and 1 call-in mentioning that she was opposed. The concerns are listed here on the shared screen. Based on the conversation at the October 15th meeting, the Board of Zoning Appeals felt that they needed to gather a little bit more information and have a further discussion. So we tabled it until November 19th. And then on October, and the criteria that were listed is basically the safety of the children if the daycare opens, questions about parking, and a question about a property that was resolved in the October 19th meeting. In the October 19th meeting, they resolved many of the issues, but they remained, and the petitioner provided photos that is in your packet. Namely, this is one of the photos, and then there's a nighttime photo to address the issue of whether there's parking available. And the Board of Zoning Appeals felt that the criteria for 1 and number 3 of 7 criteria were not met to their satisfaction, namely the safety of the property for establishing a daycare and the effect on neighbors, and therefore ruled unfavorably for this petition. And so it was sent to Common Council with the recommendation of unfavorable from the BZA on November 19th. That concludes the staff portion overview. I will take any questions at this time.
Mr. President.
Councilman Brewer.
Ms. Maria, was these things outlined by yourself to the committee at the time?
Can you repeat the question?
Was these things outlined to the committee at this time before they voted on this?
Yes, we went over these issues. They had in front of them the 7 criteria, and we had a full and robust discussion about that before they voted.
Okay, thank you.
President, I do. The process here is a little odd again. A neighbor who does not live in the area call in to voice opposition. I'm not sure how, and it's concerning the people that live in the area. So she may be contradicting three or not opposed. I'm not sure why that is given, such a large, looking at all that's written in there, why that was even considered. Or you would get people calling in from all over the city. And I would have had to ask her to send something in writing as opposed to a telephone call. So was that taken into consideration also, this telephone call?
The fact that one was a call and others were in writing was not taken into consideration. They were all
telephone call.
Yeah, I believe all neighbor responses were weighted equally.
Yeah, that was my concern. She could be contradicting these three not opposed, could be senior citizens that lived in the area.
And it ended up being 4 not opposed because one late mail that came in.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Lay. Any other questions?
I have a comment.
Councilwoman Brown?
We had this address before, and I don't recall what our vote was on this, but this has come before this body before, so I'm not sure where we are with this. Does anybody who was on the council before remember this?
Yes, Ms. Berea has knowledge of this also too. Ms. Berea?
Okay.
Yes, we are aware that a previous daycare was run or came up before the council requesting a daycare at this property, but it's a different petitioner. So
But it what?
It was a different petitioner, and it was a different person altogether. So we were pretty clear in the BZA meeting on November 19th to make sure we had a distinction between the comments that pertain to that petitioner previously, that it didn't apply to the petition at hand because this is a different person, just happens to be the same property.
Well, it's still the same family. It's just a different person. I just want to make that distinction that was known inside the committee. It is the same property, just it's different family members now that will be operating this daycare.
Well, I have a question. If
Councilwoman,
the BZA didn't approve it, how did it get to us?
It can keep moving. The council has the final say.
And what was the reason the BZA didn't?
A question about the safety of the kids due to high-speed cars going down the road, and a question about the safety of the area for neighbors. So the criterion number 1 and number 3 of the special use criteria.
Okay.
Mr. President, you must be using that telephone call. You just talked about the elderly.
Is this the elderly person that showed up on the Zoom meeting during a committee meeting that said she lived right across the street? Are we talking about the same person? I want to make sure.
The same 2 women who called in.
Yes, one said
during the
behind and one lived direct across the street.
If I may, those were the same 2 that participated in the Zoom call for the plan committee meeting and both BZA meetings.
So is that true that one lives directly across the street and one lives on the next block behind?
That is what I heard from, I think, the petitioner daughter.
Okay.
It's not part of the document you've given us. So you say you have a hearsay from the daughter of the petitioner. It's not here, and you're telling us.
not questioning the truth and veracity of that.
No, this person showed up during a committee meeting. We had two people that showed up during a committee meeting that spoke. I'm looking at what was sent out. It's not even in here, but two people showed up during a committee meeting that was neighbors. One lived behind this resident, and one is supposed to live directly across the street from this property here. That spoke against.
So how many are opposed? This document says one and speaks to a telephone call.
Yeah.
How many are actually opposed?
If I was looking at the document, I would say one off this document here, and we had two that came to the committee meeting. I would say that's three, unless we're looking at the same person.
Why do we have a document that only says one if it's three? Why are you giving us a document that's incomplete and you had all of this time to correct the document?
That's correct. I could have updated it at the November 19th meeting. This is the same one that I used then. And I believe it's the same person who called, so it would be one more opposed and one more not opposed. So it would be 2 and 4.
So if I may, I think that there's a few things happening here. We have really no criteria for how we're making these decisions as a council.
Right.
I am certain we have approved daycares where there was an equal number of opponents and proponents, right? We've approved them where, or not approved them when the opposite was true. You know, so I do think that we need to be consistent in how we're handling these. I mean, there's one thing in terms of who responds to the letters before it comes to BZA. I know that BZA in some cases has approved things where there's been more than one letter that they got in opposition. And so it seems like we're all over the place in developing this criteria, which is problematic, which leads to my question. And I don't know whether you're able to answer this, Mr. Correa, but maybe the Corporation Counsel or some other learned attorney may be able to answer. What is the, if we were to vote against this, do the petitioners have a claim before the circuit court? That is to say, are they able to go and petition elsewhere to overrule? I know you can do that in some zoning decisions to get relief from court.
Mr. President, this is Attorney Pohl. I just, the short answer is yes, the BZA's decision and the council's decision could be challenged. There's obviously deference that's provided to the city and the decision-making body, as long as it's not arbitrary and capricious. So in the situation like this where you have either a special use variance or something where there's criteria set out in either statute or ordinance, the BZA is the first body that hears that essentially hears the petition. They, based upon the 7 criteria that are provided, that are statutorily provided, they make a decision and state either, that yes, this will be granted because all of these 7 criteria are met, or there's at least nothing that stands out as a reason for which these this should not be granted based upon this criteria. Then that decision, either the decision is forwarded to the council with either a favorable recommendation, an unfavorable recommendation, or no recommendation. So that was originally put together by Mr. Berea, which is the 1 opposed, 3 unopposed. That was the original recommendation in the package that he had put together based upon the information that was provided to the BZA, and as well as what occurred at the actual BZA meeting and their ultimate determination. So as far as process goes, there is criteria that's set out there. It's just, you obviously cannot be arbitrary and capricious in how you make that decision, to your point. So if the determination by the council is, we agree with the BZA that this should not be granted based upon the 7 criteria, then that would be fine. If you disagree, you can obviously disagree and reverse that determination. So it is up to the council, and the main point being those not to apply that criteria arbitrarily and capriciously.
And I think that's part of my concern, because I think we have, right? Because again, it's a lot to get people to even mail back anything, and for somebody to actually say that. Now, usually it's the negative things that you get a lot of, right? The complaints. It takes a lot to get positive or, responses, right? So, I just want to make sure that if the council does vote against it, that the petitioner knows her rights, that she can go before a court and have this overturned. And if that is in fact the case, it makes sense to me. That's how a lot of this is handled. I would want to make sure she knows that. And I do think we need to be clear on this as we go through these. Councilman Lay?
Yeah, of the 3 points, now we got 6 or 7 of the 3 points. Again, I think it's what we're given. As I recall, it's no longer on the screen, but I think it was hours of operation. What was wrong with the hours of operation? Mr. Berea, what was wrong with the hours of operation?
I don't recall at the moment. I do believe that it was maybe there was a confusion over if it was going to be past PM or not.
I will accept you don't know. I mean, I'm not going to force you to answer what you don't know. What about the safety of the children? Something about the speed limit? What speed limit is down through there?
Councilman Lay, before you move on, you asked a question about the hours, and it was brought out in the meeting also. I believe at one time the petition was looking to be a 24-hour, but to compensate with the residents in concern, they said they would go with the 6 to 6, but their preference was to be a 24-hour. But if it was such a concern to the resident, they did decide.
Yeah, but I mean, did they change it 6 to 6?
It's 6 to 6 inside.
Oh, well, that shouldn't even, that no longer should
be. In the meeting when it came up, and I don't think that was done prior to. So I think that's why that's noted on the BZA. So in our committee meeting is when they made that decision.
In a council committee meeting?
Correct.
Oh, okay. I thought it was a committee meeting of the BZA.
No, so I believe that's why this is noted here. And then in terms of what was it? Adequate parking, we talked about that.
No, the segment of safety of the children, as I understand, that's the speed limit. That's the city doing that.
The residents, the 2 ladies who did come on the committee meeting to oppose last week, they spoke about that. They stated that they were concerned of the speeding that happens with cars coming by on that particular street. And they also spoke briefly about there possibly needing to have a speed bump there. That was the only thing that was there related to that.
Right. Is that being held against the petitioner? In other words, the petitioner can't control the speed on the street. That's the responsibility of, that's our responsibility through our police department and posting, engineering posting the speed limit. If they're violating it, they should be given tickets.
Mr. Breer, can you post your 7 criteria again?
Well, this is the first I've seen that. I was talking about what we were initially given.
Well, he brought this up in the committee meeting. He showed these 7 points and we had a conversation.
Well, yeah, we have 2 documents. I guess what I'm saying is being missed. In other words, this first document that I received, looking at it here, shouldn't have been given to us. I thought those were the rationale that were being used, but apparently Mr. Brewer says telephone conversation, people are appearing, and I guess Mr. Brewer, I'm sorry, Eric, I want to apologize. I'm not pronouncing your last name, so you certainly are welcome to call me Corius. I don't know. It seems to me we should have had a upgraded document. I think I'm like President Godwin. I mean, if this isn't arbitrary and capricious, is getting there. It's enough for somebody to consider it because we're looking at 2 documents to make one decision. I think I've said all that I can say about this. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. And I would just add that even with this list of 7 items, it's not necessarily the case that we don't know which one of these the PGA used.
We talked about that in the meeting. We said it was very subjective, right? And so I felt like the Planning and Development Committee, we need to do something with this. If it's, updating the ordinance so it's more definitive, because this is, all of them are very subjective.
Yes.
So, all right.
Well, I think the biggest complaint, and I'll speak for one of the petitioner that lived directly across the street, there was a previous daycare, and I know we're not comparing these two, but this was the discussion that took place. There was a previous daycare that took place there, and there was issues that took place there at that daycare, and it was under our guidelines of the 1 year to come back. It did not happen. The previous owner, one of the owners passed away, and the other owner decided to dissolve the daycare. A family member decided that since it was already put together, they will continue the daycare. So therefore, that's why they're coming back before us. But they had no dealings with the operation at that time of that daycare there. But due to COVID, this loved one passed on at that time.
I just have one technical question for either Mr. Cole or Mr. Berea. So when someone says, hey, I'm going to make my daycare 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., that does not prevent them from going directly to the state to change their hours, or do they have to come back before us to change their hours?
Well, we can tailor the, Mr. President, this is Rodney. We can, you can obviously include contingencies based upon the special use. So you can state, okay, well, if we're going to agree for you to operate during this time, your special use, you're granted a special use based upon these contingencies, that you only operate during this time, or, so if that's discussed in the planning and committee meeting, that could be something that is included or amended to the proposed ordinance to verify that or to include that. One other thing that I did want to mention, as far as the BZA decisions go, I completely understand both President Godwin and the Councilman Lay's points about ensuring that this is consistency. And if you ask anybody from any of the city departments, I'm a major proponent of making sure things are consistent. There's no arbitrary and capricious decisions that are being made. I think Mr. Berea does a very good job of pretty much documenting what's being provided to the BZA, and then what are the decisions based upon that as far as providing findings of fact. I know that he had stated in this situation, numbers 1 and number 3 were the reasons, because if you're looking at the same document I am, as the municipal code with the seven criteria for when there's a special use is supposed to be granted unless any of the following apply, that number 1 and number 3 were what these issues fell under. So if the thought is, hey, we need to get together with the BZA or we need to amend the ordinance, I obviously welcome that. I think it's, I think the more collaboration there is between those two entities, because ultimately you guys you have to make a decision based on what you're given. And so I completely agree with that sentiment.
And let me just say very quickly that, one of the things that concerns me is this: we have a process, the letters go out, people respond. What I don't, and I totally respect residents who live on these blocks, who have to deal with various businesses where it should be and is zoned to be residential. Totally get that. And we should police it and regulate it and make sure that people are abiding by the rules that we've set. But I am concerned that someone can come on a committee meeting and be very passionate, right, and name names of council people and all the rest, and all of a sudden, a business owner is just, you're out, right, because of who came on the call and what they said. And that to me does get to be arbitrary. I mean, I could come on calls and raise all kind of hell, and then someone all of a sudden doesn't have a business opportunity. That's dangerous to me. And it also seems like the BZA is inconsistent, because I've seen them approve stuff where, like I said earlier, hardly anybody said they were okay with it. So I just don't, I think that we have to be consistent, and I don't want us to be driven totally by emotion of a person who gets on a call, because anybody could do that to anybody, right? And if we make a decision based on 1 or 2 persons who choose to get online, that's, to me, going down a dark road. Their opinions should be considered, and perhaps we need to amend this to limit the hours. But I'm just concerned if we make decisions based on 1 or 2 callers, given the size of a neighborhood and the process we've established.
Mr. President.
Attorney Williams.
Yeah, and you make a good point. In fact, the criteria that's set out in the ordinance, and it's also spelled out in 36-7 of the state code, reflects that your consideration should be only on those 7 areas or those of the state code, and not at all of the comments of the public. Now, when the public comments coincide and jeopardize one of those 7 criteria, then of course that's relevant. I served as the president of the zoning board for about 8 years. And the one time we were sued, and I won't name the board member, but a board member made a statement, well, I just don't like y'all and I'm not voting for it. And there was a lawsuit, and I don't believe it materialized because we reversed ourselves and approved the the agenda item. But in fact, it is those 7 criteria and those spelled out in Indiana Code 36-7 that really should be the only consideration of the council, and not that of the public comments, unless they're germane to those criteria.
President,
Attorney Williams, Councilman Lay.
even if they're assuming if they're germane, that's fine, but I think they have to be in a written form. Again, looking at 1 and 3, 1 seems to be under the jurisdiction of the city. We're talking about speed limits. I mean, what is the speed limit on this street? And it sounds like to me someone is violating the speed limit, I would guess, on Arthur Street. And that's being held against the person, and I assure you, I don't know any of these people, opening the daycare center. That seems to me to be very arbitrary. I mean, they can't really do much about it. I can understand if they were trying to open something in the middle of the expressway, that's just bad planning. I'm not sure how it substantially alters the neighborhood if 1 was already there and this is reopening. How it violates 3, other than maybe it's in the telephone conversation. So again, I have the same feelings that you have, Mr. President. It seems to be arbitrary what's going on here. And I agree, sometimes we seem to vote yes, and then we vote no, we abstain, and I can't figure out the rationale how we get to those votes. Even down to the one that I recall is Miss Bobo. We went through, jumped through a lot of hoops in order to get there, and in spite of the fact that the police chief gave us a written affidavit, a sworn affidavit, that things that have been said in the telephone calls not correct. And he even gave us a sheet containing the 21 times they went to the household. You know, possibly, I mean, I don't know. And this is coming they did this in November, and it's now finally coming to us in February. That's a little slow. I don't know, maybe, well, I don't know. I'm like you, I'm not sure where we are on these things. They just come, we vote all over the place.
Mr. President,
Councilman Barnes Caldwell.
Mr. Barreria, I'm sorry. Are there any more daycares on that block, or are they closed?
There were a few daycares to the east of and north of that area.
Okay, it was one on the end, if I'm not mistaken, of that
Yes.
block. That one gone, or this is still there?
And I believe that this was part of the discussion on the 19th of why number 3 comes into play is they felt the character of that neighborhood changed with so many daycares, and even if 1 or 2 closed down, that there were concentration east of there.
You
That's
still
where
have
that came into play.
this area. You still have several in the area?
I'll see if I can pull up the map.
Okay.
It was noted during the committee meeting, there was a possibly, I believe, one at the other end of the block. But the map did show there's several in the area, but that was to your question on the block.
Yeah, on the block. So is that one still open?
Now that I don't know of, Ms. Burrell, have to check that.
The one on that block was not still open, and that's what we uncovered in the November 19th meeting, is that the comments that were relating to that one did not pertain to me. So I believe we're looking here on Arthur Street. So in this area here is where the petition is, and we had other daycares to the east and to the south of this particular daycare.
Okay, thank you.
I think there's we were still having council members at this time. I would think the petitioner, would you like to say anything?
Yes.
The petitioner?
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Yes. So is the petitioner's on, I believe?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to respond to what you've heard so far or offer any insight or clarification?
Just basically, I just want to be given an opportunity, you know, because one person is saying that, you know, the neighborhood is changing because of previous daycares. That has nothing to do with me. She said cars are speeding down the road. We took pictures to show that there's not that much traffic on the street. Besides, that house where the daycare is going to be at has a driveway. So that's where our parents can actually pull into the driveway to drop the kids off. So that wouldn't impose a danger. I just want to be given an opportunity. That's all I'm asking for.
Any questions for the petitioner from council members? Okay, seeing and hearing none, I think that I think Mrs. Green, do you live in the neighborhood?
No, but are you talking to the petitioner?
No, this is Mrs. Green. There's a Mrs. Green wanted to speak. There's no, I really don't usually do this, but I will. I'm have the conflict. Mrs. Green, wanted to speak. Do you live in the neighborhood?
I live about 20 feet from where the 1987, I'm in 1978.
Okay. You can speak now. You have up to 2 minutes.
Oh, Jesus. Okay, I have some pictures that I would like to show you all. Oh, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus.
Mrs. Green, I don't know if you're trying to show them to us on the screen, but the screen is dark right now. We can't see.
Okay, can you see these pictures?
We can't see you.
Your screen is.
Well, it's kind of hard to see me and the pictures. Can I show you these pictures and then make my comment?
Your video isn't on.
Pardon?
Your video is not on.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, Lord, I don't know how to put the video on. Are you able to see me now?
What are you using, a computer or a cell phone or?
Yes, a cell phone. And I have pictures here that is showing the cars on the block, the cars in the driveway, where my driveway is, and all of the homes there have cars and they don't have driveways. So that
if you, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but if you look at the bottom of your screen, there should be a start video, like where you hit unmute. Beside that should be an option to start the video.
Okay, it says mute, it says raise hand, chat, Q&A, and then more.
I'm not looking at it on my phone, but usually there's a video option, like you just muted yourself. So usually there's there you are. Okay, now you need to unmute yourself.
Thank you. Now, can I show you the pictures now?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, Jesus.
Well, what is your concern? That's what I mean,
My concern?
yeah, what are your concerns?
Yes, ma'am. First of all, there's cars at every home, and the cars on the block, they don't have driveways other than the 1975 and myself. The rest of the cars have to park on the street. My concerns is in the neighborhood, there's been shooting, people using the bathroom on the street, and a lot of things that was said. I have mentioned this it's been 2, 3, 4 years ago when Karen Freeman opened up her daycare. My concern is after your daycare don't work, you rent out the property and then turn it back to a daycare, then rent it out, because Karen Freeman has a daycare on the corner.
I want to correct that. I did talk to the former mayor. She has never owned a daycare. She had a tenant who had a daycare. I don't want that to be any confusion in the public.
Okay, well then she has told a story, because when she opened up her daycare, it's been 3 years ago. She had her, she came back, knocked on the door because we all opposed it. And she said, no matter what, I'm opening up my daycare. At that point, she put up all her flags and her all her banner across the yard and all on the house about the daycare. So she is telling the story. She's telling the story. And I want to know, yeah, she's telling the story, because she had signs out there for her daycare. She had children over there at her daycare.
So I just want to be very careful when we make these accusations. I don't believe the former mayor came before this body to get a permit for a daycare. I believe it was a tenant of hers, but she has not gotten a approval for a daycare from the city. So if we could just focus on your particular concern about this current daycare.
Okay, is this a commercial area or is it a residential area? I would really like to know that. And going through this for almost 4 years is very depressing for me. The property I live in was from 1954. My parents lived here. They deceased and I moved here. And we haven't had, other than the neighborhood, the pandemic is going on now. The people had the daycare there before, the same family as Ron Brewer stated. They were given a year and it would be finalized after a year. After the year ended, here we go again with this daycare opening up, blocking my driveway where I can't get in and out of my home. And I'm not going to have confrontations getting into my home as a senior. I'm not, And you all talked about earlier people moving in from other areas. We don't know what type of people are going to be in that daycare. It's a pandemic, like I said, going on. Neighbors fighting outside at Karen's house. The police being there at Karen's house. I'm sorry to mention her name, but I don't have, I think the address is 1988. Shooting, outside cursing, breaking into neighbors, breaking into homes and to cars, using the restroom outside, squatters in the house next to the daycare, dealing drugs. All these things are going on in my street, and I have mentioned that from day one at the BAZ meeting or whatever, on coming down to the meeting at the art place where you all had a meeting at. And it's just hard to live in a neighborhood as a senior where all of this is going on, and daycare after daycare after daycare is one on the 1700 block. And the house that they're showing is before he bought the house. So, you know, you're not really showing the block, and I really wish you could see these pictures to get a better idea. But those are my concerns, and I just don't see why I have to live in this type of with all these daycares back and forth, and it's going on more than 3 years. We've been fighting about these daycares, and there's been more people that has called in, made that oppose this daycare than is being acknowledged. And one of them even mentioned about the secretaries as if they, you know, didn't, I don't know why they didn't get it, but it's been more people that oppose from Karen's, I'm sorry, from the daycare in 1980 to the daycare in 1987. And I still oppose of that daycare. And if they can sue, what rights do the residents have? And they don't even live in Gary. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Green. I mean, I don't want to have a back and forth at all, but I do think that the petitioner should have an opportunity to respond. And I want to be clear, we typically handle this in committee, but in light of the confusion and circumstances, we'll prevent it. But I think it's only fair to give Ms. Harper an opportunity to respond.
Godwin, I just want to say that she's talking about Karen Freeman and all these things that's happening on the block. That has nothing to do with me. Like I said, I just want to be given the opportunity to run a business. If you can give me a year or trial basis, I'm happy to do that. But like I said, all the things that she's mentioning has nothing to do with me.
When my driveway was blocked, that was Maurice Price, all that traffic. They did block my driveway.
Ms. Green, that has nothing to do with me.
Okay.
He owns the building.
All right.
He owns the building.
So,
That's your son-in-law.
Okay, we're not going to move back and forth, but I think both parties have been able to speak. And so I think at this point, do any council members have any other questions for Mr. Berea? And then we should take a vote. If there's no other questions.
It's not so much for Mr. Thank you, Mr. President. It's not so much for Mr. Berea. I do recall this daycare. I do recall Ms. Green coming at that time, and we did give the previous owner of the daycare a stipulation of 1 year. They was not able to complete that stipulation of 1 year. I never had any phone calls about any problem that was happening at the daycare until now Mrs. Green had brought to our attention that there was issues at that time. I'm happy to put those stipulations back in place if that will be pleasing to the rest of my colleagues. The petitioner has no problem with agreeing to those stipulations. She has said that she had no interaction with the previous owner of the daycare, and she's looking to run her daycare her own way and not how the previous owner used to. So at that point there, I will put the stipulations in a 1 year guideline. That would be my first motion I will put, that we put a stipulation of a 1 year guideline in place.
So that's a motion. Is there a second? Do you want to, Councilman Brewer, also add to your motion the hours?
Yes, sir. President Godwin, the hours will be from 6 to 6. That was the hours that was outlined to the petitioner, and just want to let the petitioner know that that's what we're voting on. If you should happen to want to change those hours, you will have to come back to this body to request those changes.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Brewer, second by Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell, stated amendment. Any questions or discussion?
Just one. Will you give a specific date when the young lady has to return? What date? And will she be returning to your investigative committee? What would due process be? Will it be to you? How does the person come back? We need a firm date to know the statutory year running of that year. Would it be
Yes,
from today's date? 1 year?
It will be 1 year, and it will be to the next year, February 2nd. But she will only return if there are complaints that have been filed against her and brought to the Planning and Development Committee. Then I would then forward to this body.
Do the complaints have to be in writing, or somebody can call you on the 1st of February?
I will prefer that they be in writing and that they would be brought to the zoning committee, and then they will be forwarded over to the Planning and Development Committee.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. And as I've said before, I don't like these amendments, but again, if it's what it takes to get enough votes to pass it, then I certainly wouldn't want to inhibit Ms. Harper. And I think the point that Councilman Lay is raising is the one I've raised before, But in any event, I will vote for the amendment in order for the lady to have a business. Any other questions or discussion? All right, this is for the amendment. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
I think she had some technological trouble, so let's come back to Councilwoman Atkins.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown, Councilwoman Brown,
Yeah,
This is on the amendment.
okay, yes.
Councilman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
I passed for a moment.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
Councilwoman Atkins, Councilman Lay,
No.
President Godwin.
No.
Mr. President, vote is 6 yes, 2 noes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. With 6 votes in the affirmative, the amendment passes. And if I could, I'll just say I only voted no because I knew there was a sufficient number of votes for it to pass. But on principle, I do not like these types of amendments, but I understand what's necessary. At this point, we need to consider CPO 2021-02 as amended. If there's no other questions or discussions, it's already been moved and seconded, we can take a vote on it.
Mr. President, one question, one statement. My amendments and always to put that 1-year stipulation in, it's basically a compromise to residents that may have concern and not to just push their concerns to the side. Their voice matter, their longevity inside the neighborhood does matter. And I don't never want to feel like what they have stated have went on deaf ears. I think it should be considerate to a certain point there and to make sure those concerns are being met some kind of way in a monitoring fashion that I think, the council should always possibly consider those things. I'm happy to see that the petitioner herself stated that whatever it takes to get it done. So that means she's confident that the services that she will deliver and making sure that the people that come to her residence to drop their loved ones off, they abide by those guidelines and respecting the neighbors. So I do understand what the petitioner is saying, and I do believe that she's going to do everything she can because she sees up front already what has happened in the past, and she's not looking forward to repeat that. So I think this is a good win on both ends here for the petitioner as long as for the resident also too. But I think there'll be a good working relationship though.
Thank you. I just want to quickly say that I too believe we should listen to residents and their concerns. The only reason I don't like these is that we have no monitoring capacity. And we don't, I know we've done it before and years go by and there are complaints, but nothing actually happens. And thirdly, sometimes we put them in, sometimes we don't, which means that honestly, anybody who comes before us could turn out to be a bad actor, right? We might presume they have the best of intentions. Maybe they're on a block where the neighbors aren't as vocal. We don't put it in there, but then they cause problems, right? And so fourthly, there's already a process in place that if any daycare owner, with or without our 1-year reservation, causes problems, and we know that the city has means to court to address those with due process. So I think for the reasons that Councilman Lay has pointed out, and I've said before, that the due process piece is important. And I don't want it to appear that we don't care about what residents think. I care about what everybody thinks, those who are paying the rent or paying the mortgage. But I just think we're not always consistent. We don't put those in all of them, and anybody can have the potential to do that. That was my only reason for it.
Mr. President, the young lady that spoke, Ms. Green, I certainly have concerns about what she said. But again, it was irrelevant. We almost are now going to start on every daycare center that comes forward, where if we have one person complaining or two, and they're not even following the process, we will now put this 1 year. I think it has and again, I believe every petitioner, in light of the fact that they will get a no, will allow the 1 year probation. Bobo said she would do it too, Miss Bobo. So again, I think they all, once they know they have to accept that, but they will be turned down by the majority of the council. They probably will say yes to that. Somehow we need to set up a consistent way for people when they come. Either we now start saying, well, everyone gets a year probation. That would be the only way. It wouldn't be arbitrary. We give everyone a year. Other than that, it's very subjective who gets the year and who does not get the year. And again, I will be voting yes on the, as it is amended, on the ordinance as amended. And I certainly hope she has a very successful year. And again, I would hope it would come back in writing and no one calling. And that way and also that when it comes back, that immediately the petitioner is given the document, that she don't show up at a hearing where she may in fact need some type of representation to speak for her, to give her the document stating very specifically what is wrong, so she don't be blindsided with what's coming up. And I will be voting yes for the ordinance as amended.
And I will as well. Councilman Brewer?
Yes, sir. I do hear what everyone's saying, and that we need to do some work around daycares altogether, the stipulations, what we want to see, different things come in place, so we're not put into this situation here. I know there were some things far as the sheet that Ms. Barrera put up. Some of the council members had some concerns about even that also. So I think it's a work in progress that we need to start working on, because we see there are more daycares that's come before us, and there have been plenty of issues that have come up with residents also. So I think we need to put some teeth in it, and I do agree with you, Councilman Lay. Maybe this is something that we will work on to put in place going forward. Just as a standard guideline that these things have to take a 1-year probation. If there's no written complaints and went through the proper channels to get back before us, then we will act on it at that time. But I appreciate everyone. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Brewer, any other question or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins. Councilman Brewer.
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown. Councilwoman Brown.
Pass.
Councilman Brown.
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell.
Yes.
Councilman Lay.
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon.
Yes.
Councilman Williams.
Yes.
Councilwoman Atkins. Councilwoman Brown.
Yes.
President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. With a vote of 8-0, TPO 2021-02 as amended passes and is so ordered.
Mr. President, it's pending ordinances and resolutions on third and final.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilman Lay, did you want to suspend the rules to pass CPR 2021-02 on all 3 readings?
Yes, I believe under the circumstances, yes. I would move that rules are suspended in order to pass 2021, I believe it's 02 on all 3 readings. Resolution.
Is there a second?
Second, Mr. President.
Mr. President?
Councilman Brewer?
I'm sorry, but Councilwoman Atkins is out of the meeting, but she's trying to, I guess, get back in. She can only see us, but she's not engaged inside the meeting. But I believe they have to add her back to the meeting.
Okay, so media team, can we make sure that Councilman Atkins is added back as a panelist?
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Second, Mr. President, on the motion.
Thank you. So it's been moved and was seconded by Councilman Brown, and I heard a chorus of others, but
Barnes Caldwell, yeah.
as well as Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell. So I don't think we need an overview at this time, but is there any question or discussion about suspending the rules to consider it on all three readings? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilman Brown,
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
Councilman Brown,
Yeah.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, vote is 9-0.
With a vote of 9-0, CPR 2021-02 will be considered on all three readings. At this point, is there a motion to pass CPR 2021-02?
Mr. President, make motion. Okay.
I'm sorry.
It's been moved by Councilman Brown and seconded by Councilman Brewer.
Yes.
All right. At this time, we will have the overview by Councilman Lay.
Resolution that was put together by Attorney Poe is actually first class. I read it back and forth again, and I'd like to certainly mention that Mr. Godwin talked to Dr. Powell, as well as the mayor. Mayor Prince talked to Dr. Powell, as well as Rodney Poe. They all seem to have certainly been impressed by the conversation. I've known Dr. Powell so long, I'm not even sure how long I've known him. We are classmates. I got a call from Atlanta, a person that is also a classmate who keeps in close contact with Dr. Powell, and I was aware of his work in prostate cancer, which is very important to the African-American male. We will learn a great deal more if you tune in on February the 8th at 9 o'clock, where Mr. Roper will be interviewing Dr. Powell. The mayor, along with what we're suggesting, making him an honorary council person, that certainly, I believe, is a very high honor. We're all here based on election, and certainly if a person makes a substantial contribution, Dr. Powell's contribution went far beyond the city of Gary. His family used to own the Power Coleman Funeral Home. Their interest was sold maybe 20 years ago. He will be receiving a key to the city. And I'd like to congratulate the council and the mayor that finally, where we all have agreed to something. And that's good. That's the first step. So that we made. I'm sorry, Councilwoman Brown, don't laugh. But anyway, that may be the first step that 21 will turn out better. Other suggestion I'm going to make, it's a little bit off here. I think this is something we should consider over and over again, and that is people. It's quite similar to the drum major that the Frontiers established. That each year we would allow the citizens, we'd have to work it out now, but each year would allow the citizens of Gary to recommend someone to be considered to be an honorary council person. Then the council, and we'd have to figure out how many votes one would have to a super majority of some sort. But anyway, that can be worked out. But I would ask that, again, that this council put into affirmative for Dr. Powell, and certainly the men here will, most of you are young enough that you will certainly, even I, if something should occur, you would benefit from his research. I understand it's outstanding, but again, my background is not in the area of medicine. But looking at the resolution, and again, I said, I think Mr. Poe did a great job here. If he brings back 50 other than 600 people, I would say he did a great job there too. But again, I would ask everyone to vote in the affirmative. And beyond that, I think a person of Dr. Powers' statute and the mayor is going to work out, so he may or may not be here. But certainly, I will ask Mr. Godwin to contact him again and ask him to at least to appear at the council meeting, which I believe would be the 16th. Today is the second. It would be the 16th, and certainly you would get an opportunity to see what he looks like, as well as to hear from him. He's fairly articulate. I would say young man, except he's 80 years old. So, but with that, thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Councilman Lay, and I echo those sentiments. Look forward to watching the show. And so we know that prostate cancer is a major issue in our community. And so I certainly look forward to hearing his words on the 16th, and that they can be shared with the public if possible. As we celebrate Black History Month, someone who's made history,
Yes.
I want to vote in the affirmative on this great idea, and I think it is great. It's our own medal of freedom, if you will, to be able to offer this in the future to distinguished Gary natives, Gary residents, Gary folks who are doing great work. Are there any other comments or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins.
Yes.
Councilwoman Atkins.
Yes.
Councilman Brewer.
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown.
Yes.
Councilman Brown.
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell.
Yes.
Councilman Lay.
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon.
Yes.
Councilman Williams.
Yes.
And President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 9-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, with a vote of 9-0. CPR 2021-02 passes. Congratulations to our first honorary, maybe the first, but to our latest, our first honorary councilman, the Honorable Dr. Isaac Powell. All right, so I believe at this point, what I want to do before we go to the mayor's report, I neglected to call on Dr. Walker during Special and Select. I know he's a very busy person, and he's been waiting all this time, and we certainly thank him for all the work that he's done over the course of 2020 and into this year on COVID-19. And so we wanted to get an update from him on how things are going today, how the vaccine distribution is going. And so, Dr. Walker.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to speak. And first and foremost, what I always like to do is make sure that I thank both the mayor and the council, because one of the things I will tell you is that Gary's had a lot more cooperation than other cities, and I think that's why we've seen some success in terms of fighting this virus. I'll give a quick overview of where we're going with the vaccine currently and what vaccines are available. I'll try to be as brief as possible, as I know the night is getting long, and my mom always told me to leave people wanting more. So where we are currently is that in Gary, both the Gary Health Department and Methodist Hospital are offering COVID-19 vaccinations. And there are some other places around the area as well that are offering them. And then our pharmacies are responsible for vaccinating our citizens that are residing in nursing homes and assisted living facilities. So that's going on currently. The approach for all vaccinations that are provided by the state, well, actually they're provided by the federal government and then given to the states and distributed, is that we have to register by the state website. They've contracted somebody, and so it's ourshot.indiana.gov, and that's where you can register. Now, because some people obviously either don't have access to the internet or may have trouble navigating, one of the things that we also are doing is twofold. One, the state has provided a 211 number, as well as we have a number that we have used through the Gary Health Department for citizens of Gary, so they can call, leave a message, and we have several volunteers that then will call that person back and help them to register. Now, one, I have to also say that through the coordination of Councilman Lay and our mayor, we are actually putting that phone number up on a billboard that Councilman Lay has provided on Broadway, so that people can know what that number is. And I want to make sure that I actually have that number. That number is 219-318-0675. So that's 219-318-0675. That's for additional assistance. That's a number that is manned by volunteers. I have to commend, there's several volunteers. No way I'm going to remember all of them. That includes volunteers from the Urban League. It includes volunteers from the NAACP. I know Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated has also provided volunteers. And so we're appreciative for all the volunteers that have volunteered for the line. I'm sure there's other organizations that have volunteered that I just cannot think of. So, you know, our goal, obviously, one is to make sure that our senior citizens can navigate the website. So that's why we're giving that aid. And also, we made sure that we have targeted, we have plans for people that are homebound. So we're rolling out plans over the next 2 weeks for people who are homebound. We're also rolling out plans for homeless population as well. And we're also coordinating with the Gary Housing Authority to go into Gary Housing Authority. People who qualify are designated by the state, so our state health commissioner is designating that. Currently, as you know, as of this past Monday, the age now is 65 and older. So when we started, we were 75 and older. Now we're down to 65 and older. And then, of course, we have our first response. We have our physicians and people who work within hospitals. We have people who work within nursing homes or home care. We have our first responders, our policemen, our firemen. And then the age groups we're slowly going down. And then eventually it will be the general population. Make sure that I have that. So the next thing probably want to talk about is our plans for our mass vaccination. In order to plan for mass vaccination, we're going to have to do something bigger than the health department. So the Archdiocese at Holy Angels Cathedral has volunteered to allow us to use their gymnasium. So we're finalizing those plans. And it's a great location because they have 2 large parking lots as well. So we could have ingress and egress. We can do testing there as well as vaccinations. And so we're very appreciative to them. Our emergency preparedness coordinator, who is Brandy Downs Burnett, is still evaluating other places as well, because we're going to have both open and closed pods. And open pod would be open to the public. A closed pod would be something like we're probably going to do at Indiana University or the steel mill, where it's a targeted population just for those people there. The vaccinations that are currently being given at the Gary Health Department, we're doing all Moderna. And the reason why Moderna was chosen because we can use our regular vaccine freezers for Moderna. At Methodist Hospital, North Lake, they are also doing, I think they did just start in Moderna, but they're also doing Pfizer. Because Pfizer has to be refrigerated at -70 or below. So both of them are offered there. I think it's mostly Pfizer at Methodist. Now, both of those have an efficacy of around 94 to 95% for a vaccine that is absolutely excellent. So I encourage people to get those vaccines. And then coming down the pike, shortly, I think there's going to be emergency authorization for Johnson & Johnson, or you also may recall the manufacturer be Janssen, who has an efficacy around 65%. Now, in the vaccine world, 65% is really, really good, but it's a 1 dose. And the reason why that's important is those other 2 who have efficacy around 94, 95%, but it requires two doses. And you can imagine the logistics of getting people 2 doses and the chances of people falling off and not getting both doses. So bringing the Johnson & Johnson vaccine on board is an excellent opportunity for us to be able to get more people in a one-time dose. So that's going to be wonderful as well. And the other thing I say, so first of all, let me make sure that I give kudos to the staff at the Gary Health Department, because what I have done is set forth some guidelines and set forth a direction in which we wanted to go. But the real work, honestly, is the coordination of our public health nurse, Ms. Shirley Borum, our executive director, who's Veronica Collins Barnett, and her staff. The staff has worked above and beyond, because sometimes I can be rather demanding, wanting to make sure that it gets right, so that, you know, that we, for the health of our citizens, and I like doing things well, so I know I can be kind of demanding, but they have done an excellent job, and that's where the rubber hits the road with the staff, so I have to give them all the kudos. I'm sure you guys have lots of questions. I just want to make sure, I also want to say this stuff. We have had a schedule rate and a show rate that has that the state has commended us in terms of how many vaccines we've done and how very few no-shows that we have. But one thing that I do want to point out to the citizens of Gary that is just obvious to me is that anybody that's a citizen of Indiana can register to come to the Gary Health Department. So you don't have to be a Gary resident. And so anybody that tells you that people won't come from an outside area to come to Gary to get a service, they have no idea what they're talking about. Because it is abundantly obvious when you come down to the Gary Health Department that it's a significant amount of people not from Gary that are coming to use the resources in Gary, perfectly within their rights. But that's why I want to encourage our citizens to register and come get this resource in Gary, Indiana, because it's here. And you should really think about it when you see other people coming to your city to use a resource, then that means that it's something desirable. And for some reason, we're bypassing it and we should not be. So I'm sure you have plenty of questions, so I'll open up to questions. Yes.
Councilman, I'm sorry, President Godwin?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Walker, just a quick question in reference to our essential workers, general services workers, park department workers, those that work at City Hall, police, fire, and many others that work within the city. What is the plan for getting those vaccines to those individuals? As those individuals, you know, general services and those others who are out there on that front line are dealing with the general public on a daily basis. You know, I'm going to be taking my shot tomorrow. I work in Illinois, and because my company is considered essential, that shot has been made available to all workers there at my facility. So what plan do you have for our people here?
So I appreciate the question because I meant to address that earlier. And one of the things that happens when you divide up those different categories that you said is that all those categories don't go together, right? So our police and our fire, the first responders, qualify now. And they've had the opportunity now for several weeks to get the vaccination. And they've had the opportunity to get it within multiple places in our region. And that number is, the percentage of those people getting vaccinated is going up. Keeping in mind that several of the people that fall in that category want to wait for whatever reasons, you know, waiting to see what's happening. And some people do not want to be vaccinated. As opposed to, I've had a lot of questions from, for instance, general services, GSD, and some of those places, and teachers, actually teachers too. Some of those essential workers that, in my estimation, should qualify, but don't currently qualify in Indiana. And I've even seen some groups touted to be vaccinated that I knew that was kind of skirting the line and they did not qualify. And so in this last round of information that was put out, there were several groups that did not qualify, and the state put it in bold, this group not yet. And on the list, they actually said general services. They actually said groups such as bailiffs and so forth. Not yet. So I just wanted to bring that out because some of those people qualify because of age, but they do not qualify based on their work yet. And I don't have the authority. Well, actually, I guess I could make the decision to vaccinate those people against the state recommendation. But what that would do is put us in a position to jeopardize our supply. Because if I went against what the current recommendations are of the state health commissioner, they could then say, no more for Gary because you guys don't follow the rules. So I won't comment on what some of the other health departments are doing. I just think that it's in our best interest as citizens of Gary to stay within those guidelines. The other thing that I've made sure that we've done in Gary, and I've had this conversation with several people on this line, is that we generally get a notification maybe a day, not a lot in advance, but maybe a day or two in advance that the qualifications have changed. And then we're asked every time, do not release this information until a certain time. Like the new recommendation, nobody's supposed to release that information until 9 a.m. this past Monday. And almost invariably, that the information is leaked out to the media so that somebody can get it out first. And so just not how we want to go about how we're doing things here because we don't want to jeopardize our supply.
So with that being said, are we still providing the necessary masks and hand sanitizers and things of those natures to those workers that will have to wait?
Absolutely. So whenever we get a shipment in, outside of whatever those departments are purchasing, when we get a shipment sometimes, and it's sporadic, we don't know when we're going to get them. We get a shipment through emergency preparedness, and then our emergency preparedness coordinator then distributes them to those appropriate entities. And most of them usually, by the way, usually go to our nursing homes because our nursing homes also tend to have large amounts of workers. Those, even though they're private companies, but large amount of workers who don't have the appropriate PPE. And we can go back and forth about those companies should be providing it, but when we identify that those companies are not providing the PPE to us, we just want to meet that need and then deal with what they're not doing later.
Thank you. Any other questions for Dr. Walker?
Mr. President.
Councilman Brewer?
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, Dr. Walker, we appreciate everything you're doing and you continue to do, and tell Mom I said happy birthday. Also, I was at a couple of the senior citizen buildings this week, and it was ironic that both places had the same question for me. Why not bring the vaccine to them, whereas more of them are there? Why not set up, they have community rooms and things of that nature. A lot of them, don't have the means of transportation to get out, and they want the vaccine, but they're just not mobile to get out. And with weather that we have right now, I think it would be ideal if we would set up a clinic or shop there where we can basically give the shot to our seniors inside the senior high-rises.
So absolutely. So we are coordinating with Gary Housing Authority to do just that. And what it takes is, this gets really wonky in the explanation. What it takes not only is the training of the volunteers, which we are starting to get multiple volunteers to do that. Also, it takes a block schedule in the system that the state has contracted, because when we have to open those up so that you can document. And so we had to go to the state and say, we need these open and then blocked so we could go in and do it. So the state has had to actually design those for us at the point in which we asked for it. But we're absolutely going into Gary Housing Authority and any other place where we think there's senior citizens that were not covered by the pharmacies.
Please keep me abreast. I would love to assist any way I can with helping our seniors get vaccinated.
Oh, we'll take all the volunteers. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions for Dr. Walker? I want to echo our thanks for all the work that you're leading. And I want to tease our Attorney McCain. You mentioned the Alpha Phi Alpha was volunteering. I don't know what Kappa Alpha Psi is doing, but I'm sure that Attorney McCain will let us know. At this time, we'll have our mayor's report. Thanks again. Thank you.
It's not uncommon for a Kappa man to follow an Alpha man since we were founded in 1911. It's always a pleasure to speak before this body and bring you greetings on behalf of Mayor Jerome Prince. I'd like to start off with echoing the thanks from Councilwoman Brown regarding the donations that we received from all of the donors. I would like to especially thank a particular donor, Eric Smoot Hemfield, who is my classmate from the class of 1991. Eric is a multiple state champion in track, and I've been knowing him for 40 years or so. And he has always been such a generous soul. He and his twin sister, Eric and Erica, they are both very generous and giving. And even though Eric no longer lives in Gary, his heart remains in Gary. And I just salute him and his partners for always giving back to the city of Gary. I'd like to also recognize another member of the mighty class of 1991, and that is native son LaTroy Hawkins. If you haven't read, LaTroy was nominated to be a member of the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. And I call LaTroy Gary's gift to baseball. He played in 1,042 games, and that is a record for an African-American pitcher. He is the godfather of the Super Bowl champion and MVP. What's my guy's name from Kansas City? I just lost his name. The quarterback from Kansas City Chiefs, who will be playing this Sunday. LaTroy is also, his heart remains in Gary, even though he no longer lives here, and I'd like to recognize him as well. Closer to home, I'd like to echo the compliments and sentiments of each of you in thanking the men and women of our Public Works Department, General Services, Gary Fire Department, and Gary Police Department. We have had the largest snowfall in the past 2 years. The administration is very proud of the team and how well they responded to this snow emergency that occurred over the past 10 days. We know that we have some areas of improvement. We have been listening to the citizens and residents about those areas. We intend to meet as a group to do a postmortem on our response to see where we can improve. We will, of course, invite you, Councilman Brewer, to that meeting where we can discuss how we can improve and do better. You mentioned in your special and select comments about the cars parked in the snow routes. We are aware of that, and we want to address that. One of the things that we have done is to create or to increase our code enforcement, where we have code enforcement officers out on the weekend. At the count this past weekend, we have over 300 cars in Gary that need to be towed. Either they are unregistered, no license plates at all, expired license plates, disabled, you name it, it's there. We are working with the police department and the patrol commanders in helping us address those needs on the weekend so that we can start towing cars en masse and clearing the streets, not only for aesthetic purposes, but also for these logistical purposes that we need to in order to clear the snow routes. Since I am addressing with your comments, Councilman Brewer, I also would like to revisit the Genesis Center. As you all very well know, the Genesis Center was transferred from city ownership to redevelopment ownership in May of 2018. At that time, the property was listed for sale, and there were no purchasers that came forward to close that property deal. We were able to close a deal last week with Acumen Industries Corporation. They have 180 days to pay the balance of $2.5 million in order to have full ownership of the Genesis Center. We have conducted inventory. It's still in the, I would say, about a middle of the ways there, Councilman Brewer. We have provided the council with some of our preliminary inventories, including alcohol items and non-alcohol items. We will be in a position to present the council with a comprehensive, detailed inventory, and our target date for doing that is 1 week from Friday, February 12. The mayor is going to swear in 3 new members of the Genesis Center Board on Thursday, February 4, to join the members that have already been appointed by this body. When the board reconvenes, we will address those issues that need to be addressed in terms of the equipment, assets, inventory, employees, you name it. There's a punch list of things that have to be handled by this board. We've heard the suggestions of this body in terms of keeping the board intact until after the deal is fully consummated with the receipt of the payment of the $2.5 million. We are in agreement with that. We think that that is the prudent move to keep that board intact. We will address the remaining issues with that at the appropriate time. The last 2 things on the mayor's report is I'd like to congratulate the council for voting to honor our late great mayor, Richard Gordon Hatcher. When I was born in Gary, Mayor Richard Gordon Hatcher was the mayor. He was my first mayor, and I went to elementary school with his oldest daughter. I hesitate to say that because I don't want anyone to think that she is as old as I am, but I've been knowing Reagan and her 2 sisters all of their lives. We congratulate the council, and we look forward to celebrating Richard Gordon Hatcher Day on the 2nd Monday this October 2021. And I also would like to end with congratulating the newest member of this body, Honorary Council Member Dr. Isaac Powell. I look forward to meeting with him along with the mayor when we present him with a key to the city. And I thank everyone involved for putting together this honorary recognition for the good doctor and all the good work that he's doing in the community as well as in the nation at large. Thank you very kindly, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir. At this time, any questions for the administration?
President,
Councilman Lay?
I did have one. Maybe I missed something. What's going to happen to the Genesis Center in the next 180 days? What's going to occur prior to the deal being consummated?
I'm trying to understand your question, Councilman Lay.
Let me, okay. Have they haven't taken possession of the Genesis Center, have they, the company?
Yes, they have. They will be taking possession soon of the Genesis Center, and per the purchase agreement, they will be taking over the utility payments of the.
That was my next question. So they're taking it immediately, now have possession?
Yes, sir. It will be within the next day or so. That is why the employees were notified that they would need to vacate the premises by the close of business today in order to effectuate that.
And they will take over the utilities for the building?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I just following up on that for continuity. So has a deed been recorded, or will we be recording a deed transferring legal title from redevelopment to Ackman Industries Corporation? And if we are, will we also be recording some kind of financing instrument attached to that deed, since we haven't, gotten consideration?
I don't have the answer to your question as I sit here today, Mr. President. I will be able to answer that tomorrow once I see whether or not the deed has been recorded and whether or not the accompanying clawback provision has also been recorded. But I will get that answer to you tomorrow at the latest.
Thank you.
So, Ms. McCain, just for the record, you say that the Genesis Center closed the deal. When was that? When did the deal close, the sale?
Oh, the closing documents were executed on Thursday, January 27th.
And they don't take place, they don't have full access to it until when?
The access will come probably as early as tomorrow, because now that the employees have vacated the premises and removed their personal belongings, the prospective owner or the equitable owner will be able to start doing what they need to do to get the building prepared for their purposes.
So you're confident that all documents have been removed and all items that's not part of the building has been removed also?
No, I'm not able to speak to that intelligently tonight, Councilman Brewer. I do know that we'll be working closely with the redevelopment director as well as the president of the commission to make sure that all of the documents and property belonging to the Genesis Center, City of Gary, Redevelopment Commission is removed before Acumen takes equitable ownership.
So, and my last question, my concern with the board not being in place, I know there was some movement down with the city itself and redevelopment, but the board itself never did a resolution to dissolve or sell. That's my understanding.
You are correct, sir.
Questioning about the board being conveyed before this actual sale took place.
Well, you are correct, sir, but from our perspective, the board convening or being impaneled prior to the sale is more of a technicality. And this is why we say that. The property was transferred from the City of Gary, that was the Board of Civic Managers was created by this body in 1980 in order to run the Genesis Center. When the Genesis Center was no longer owned by the city proper, the civil city, and transferred to the Redevelopment Commission, at that time, it probably would have been prudent for the Genesis Center to dissolve and for the Redevelopment Commission to run the Genesis Center. But that was not done in May of 2018.
Well,
So we had to do it this year.
I remember that conversation. It was conveyed to myself and to the body at the time. All properties are under redevelopment. So that was the reason why the Genesis Center was also moved to redevelopment, because all city properties sit under the House of Redevelopment.
That's not entirely accurate, sir. There are certain properties that are owned by redevelopment. I'll give you an example. The Gleason Park was once owned by Civil City, and it too was transferred to redevelopment in May of 2018. The Art House used to be owned by the city of Gary, but it was transferred to the Gary Economic Development Corporation in 2018 or 19 or so. So there are certain pieces of property like the Hudson Campbell Fitness Center that's owned by the Gary Park Department. So we have certain municipal properties that are owned by various agencies within the city, but not necessarily the city of Gary proper or the civil city as we call it.
Okay. All right. I look forward to hearing more about that. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. President, I do, and I should have asked it earlier. What happened to the employees over there? I'm a little, are they under perf for anything?
Councilman Lay, the administration has communicated with the employees over there, and yesterday, or I should say today, was their last day of employment, but we also advised them that we will be communicating a severance package for them, and they will have options to take advantage of a severance package in order to soften the landing of them losing their job there with the city.
Will they also be able to get unemployment compensation?
Absolutely.
So they-
Also, because it was an involuntary termination, not for cause.
Right.
Also, we have invited each of them to apply for other open positions within the city of Gary and to apply with Acumen Industries because they are eager to employ Gary residents, and we've encouraged each of them to do that as well. To my knowledge, as of yesterday, none of the Genesis Center employees have applied for an open position within the city of Gary, but I'm sure that could change. That's a fluid situation, and I can report to the council at a later time if anyone took advantage of that offer.
How many employees are we talking about?
I don't have an exact number, Councilman Lay, but I'm thinking 4 to 6.
5, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
I would just ask briefly in terms of their reemployment, how many city positions would they actually be qualified for? I mean, based on their current work, do we have a lot of positions that would fit their backgrounds?
They fit into the categories of work that we have. There are administrative positions that are open. There are a couple of administrative people who would be looking for work. The other 3 are maintenance people, and we have maintenance jobs that are open.
Okay, and have those been, have they gotten the resources? Were they given the information, or how is that communicated to them?
They have been told that they can contact HR about open positions, as well as they were told that they can also apply for those positions from our website. So we have, and I've personally talked to a couple of them myself.
Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
I just received word from our Public Works Director that one Genesis Center employee was hired by that department. So we have 1 out of the 5 who did decide to apply for an open city position, and they are now working for Public Works. So we're happy to hear about that. Also, Mr. President, I neglected to mention one more important thing, if you please indulge me. And that is City Hall was closed today, as you all are aware, due to our boiler being offline. We have a temporary fix for that. So the City Hall building will be reopening tomorrow, Wednesday, February 3rd at the normal time. We have a consistent heat, knock on wood, as my grandmother would say, and we are hoping to employ a permanent fix to that problem. It's just that the boiler equipment is very old and the part that we need is not readily available. So we have been searching nationwide for that part. And I have to give kudos to Miss Barber for doing that. She has been working round the clock for trying to find a solution to that problem. And I thank her for that.
Well, thank you, and thank Ms. Barber. It was chilly in there last night. Some of us were in there, so you told me that. I was not totally surprised, but thank you for working on it. Any other questions?
Mr. President.
Councilman
Yes,
Brown?
President. Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, Deputy Mayor.
Good evening, Councilman Brown.
I had a question. The Ackman Industry, is the parking garage part of the deal of the Genesis Center?
Yes, it is. I was under the impression before I became involved in government, Councilman Brown, that the parking garage was owned by Lake County. But when we did the title search, we discovered that Lake County had given the parking garage back to the city. So
Yes,
it
this
is considered to be part of the property that was sold.
And the reason why I asked the question is because, to my knowledge, some of the county employees have been using that garage on a daily basis to park. So the question becomes, and perhaps you want to speak with Commissioner Allen or someone, how do we, deal with that situation if it's no longer belongs to the Genesis Center and they've been using it and someone else is about to take ownership, and then they show up for work and can't enter the garage?
I will look into that, sir, and make sure that all the appropriate people are notified, as well as Commissioner Allen, and we will identify some areas where those employees can park in the alternative.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well,
Any other questions for the administration? All right. If there's no other.
Yeah, one other thing, Mr. McCain, could you explain where we are on this postponement? So you can do it much better than I can with the council.
Oh, Councilman Lay, you speak very eloquently. I don't think I could do any better, but I can just echo what you said, is that we asked the federal government for a deferral of 2 years, 21 and 22, of our loan repayments to the Gary Sanitary District. We have a principled agreement with the federal government for 2021. The answer on 2022 is not yet firm, so I don't want to jinx it by predicting what that answer will be. But the lawyers involved in the transaction are drafting a modified consent decree that will be circulated amongst the parties. And once we have all reached an agreement on what is in writing, we will present that modified consent decree to the judge, and the judge will either approve it or deny it. But we are confident that with all the parties in agreement, that the consent decree will be modified that will allow us to defer our 2021 payment at least, hopefully our 2022 payment as well, for 2 years in order to deal with the crises that have arisen over the shifting of the garbage collection versus the water treatment money.
As I recall, didn't you, you indicated to me that if they modified in a certain way, we don't even have to go before the judge?
That is correct. If it is considered a, what was the word I used?
I think you said minor.
Yes, thank you very kindly. A minor modification, it will be approved by the court without a hearing. If it is considered a substantial modification, that might require a court hearing or some further deliberation by the court. But if it's a minor modification, they'll stamp it and we're good.
All right, thank you, Councilman Brown.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I had another question, Deputy Mayor. As the president said, we were at City Hall last night for a very important meeting. I believe we're going back again next Monday. One of the things I noticed, and I have a couple questions about it, we have some new public safety squad cars. Is that true?
Yes, sir. We have ordered, let's see, there are 15 cars, I believe. Let me look at my notes. I wasn't quite prepared to talk about that, but
I apologize. I've been out the loop. Just trying to get up to speed.
Okay. Yes, we have 13 new police vehicles, 8 Explorers, 5 Interceptors. 1 hit the streets last week, or 2, and then the other 11 are being outfitted with an ETA of 10 days or so.
So I have the one additional question. I noticed a vehicle that was sitting in front of City Hall. It hadn't been, properly prepared for the street. I didn't see any radios or anything. But I saw some lettering, and I was curious about the lettering. What did that represent on those vehicles? Because I was curious. It had JP and 20s, and I was just wondering what, is that some new code with the police department or something? Maybe the chief needs to answer that, but I don't know. But I thought I'd ask you as Deputy Mayor, perhaps it might not be a question for you to answer, but it's a question I have a concern about.
Thank you, Councilman Brown. That is a control number to identify the vehicle, and it will stay with the vehicle for the life of it. And the other vehicles, like the park department, also will have a unique control number that will help the city administration identify that vehicle.
So are all those numbers going to start out with one particular letter, or each department has a different letter? Or how is that identification based on your new system? How would that go?
Nothing's written in stone right now, Councilman Brown. We aren't married to any particular control order or control number ordering system. For now, the 13 vehicles that have been ordered have that control number.
Okay, now just one more question. The reason why I asked that is because generally when particularly a vehicle of that nature, police vehicle, it's in the area. If there's a helicopter, it generally can identify the vehicle from the top of the vehicle, based on that. And I'm just curious, because we have one central 911 center, and we do have some helicopters that the county police does, and I'm wondering, are those numbers going to go on the top of those vehicles as well?
I cannot answer that question specifically. I know that each of the vehicles has the Gary Police Department logo, the control number, maybe some more identifying information. I can get you an answer to that one, Councilman Brown, but I don't have one now. I'm sorry.
I appreciate it. No problem. We'll be meeting, I think, what, next Monday and Wednesday, Mr. President?
That's right.
So perhaps you would be kind enough to, definitely want to be engaging, and you can answer some of those questions. Greatly
Sure,
appreciate it.
I'm going to respond to you as soon as I get an answer. I'll send you an email, text, or preferably give you a call.
That's fine, but the question is primarily for the entire council, so I think it would be extremely appropriate if we just let the council itself, the entire body, I think it's probably the best way, and the general public at the same time. But thank you, Deputy.
Thank you, sir.
Well, let me just follow up with Councilman Brown. My understanding is that the JP stands for Jerome Prince, and I was told that by a member of the administration. And if that is in fact the case, a reliable source told me that, who ordered the vehicles, and that was what the new control numbers would begin with. I just think that's ridiculous. And it would be like Donald Trump putting his name on all the Secret Service vehicles. It would be, out of order. And so I would urge that be removed and that no longer be used. I mean, that's hubris beyond what I think is acceptable. And that's just the bottom line as I see it. They should be standard numbers that are generally used and not tied to any one particular administration. The dollars that flow in and out of this city, which are appropriated by this council, represent the whole city, not just one individual. And let's not, beat around the bush or deceive ourselves on what those initials stand for. And so I would just urge the mayor not to allow that, and whoever did it should not continue to do it. And I think the other question which has come up is the cost of the vehicles. The fact that I think it's called the EQA, or maybe incorrect on the initials, but the state provides a certain dollar amount, usually I think around the mid $30,000 range for the purchase of these vehicles. And I don't know what kind of bidding took place either for the purchase of these vehicles, but it's my understanding, and I'd love to be corrected, that over $50,000 per vehicle was spent, which is a lot higher than what we have spent historically. And so I'd like some accounting on that. Why did these vehicles cost so much more than they have historically cost? I know prices go up 3%, 5%, but that's a dramatic, if in fact that's true, and I'd love to be proven wrong. I'd like to know, why those vehicles are so much more expensive than what we've used in the past. And lastly, I've been told that one of the vehicles has been assigned to the mayor's detail, which again, if I'm wrong, then please correct me. But I also think we should have as many vehicles as possible patrolling the streets and with folks, not saying that the mayor's detail doesn't patrol the streets, but as many of those as possible should go into the folks who, to me, the general patrolmen who are working in the 4 police districts for the city. So that's just my follow-up to Councilman Brown's important question. And of course, I'm sure you have a response.
Mr. President, we will provide this body with an accounting of the vehicles in terms of the cost. I will defer to Chief Evans to describe how the cars will be distributed, but to just disavow of the notion that one of the cars was assigned to the mayor's detail. All of them have been assigned to the police department, and I believe they're going to go to patrol, but it would be best for me to defer that to Chief Evans, who I believe is on the line. And if you allow him, he may be able to address a couple of your questions.
I don't think he's on right now.
He could be off now, but we can follow up.
If he's not, then if I could just defer the answer to that in terms of the distribution of the vehicles, Chief Evans can more intelligently respond to that.
That's fine.
Mr. President,
Councilman Lay.
in line with what Councilman Brown has said, why wouldn't we just refer to a committee and we could get more detail? I mean, several questions have been asked, and certainly you're talking about numbers and costs and things of that nature.
as opposed to trying to do it at the end of the council meeting, just, I don't know, send it over to public safety, or either public safety may be the best committee, or either Ways and Means, one of those committees. And then that would give them time to get everything together and be able to answer questions in the areas that they've been asked questions about. Because I also heard a rumor that the JP stood for Jerome Prince too.
Right, and for me, it wasn't a rumor. I have it in writing from a member of the administration, so.
Well, they like you better than they like me.
I mean, the question was presented to me. I went to the source, and that's what the source told me.
Now, that's why I say, why don't we put it into a committee and
I agree.
we get more information.
I agree, and so I'll ask Councilman Brewer, who's Chair of Public Safety, to organize that, of course, with proper public notice. And I think that would be good because we have a lot of questions even around some of the crime issues that were brought up. I do see that Chief Evans is on, but in the interest of time, it might be best that we just defer this to committee unless a council person wants to ask it at this time.
Councilman Garma, I think in the interest of time that we probably get more in detail with a lot of other things too. We would take it to committee, and I will schedule a committee for next Tuesday at 5:30, public safety.
Thank you.
Discuss the cars and public safety issues.
Okay.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for the administration?
No.
All right, we've had quite a meeting. Thank you, Attorney McCain, as always. And we look forward to our upcoming executive session on Monday and committee meetings on Tuesday. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So move, Mr. President.
Stand adjourned. Have a good evening.
Okay, thank you.